can tell me if we're live. I'll add everyone immediately afterwards. Yep, looks like we're live, actually. I can answer my own question.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
You know what? I'll take this as an opportunity to link my fun new Graham images to cover up for this.
Yes, we're going
Oh,
to...
hell yeah.
We're gonna futz with sound in a second, everybody. So hold on tight for 2 moments.
Or don't and be rascals.
Yes, you can also be rascals. You
Rascals.
mix it.
Hanging loose is
Stallions.
strictly an option.
But it will be frowned upon.
We do not approve of tomfoolery in this very serious storytime stream.
Only Jerry foolery.
Yes.
Jerry killed Tom often.
That is true.
Typical
only
Novice,
tolerate
thank you so
murder,
much for the sub. Let me drop the volume of this a little bit. Boost you guys up a little bit.
Ooh.
Make sure you're doing good audio-wise. Okay. That's looking pretty okay. Strazza111 says, loved hearing about this the first time. I'm really excited.
Hell yeah. I'm glad.
Oh man, repeat viewers.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
People know who I am on the internet.
it's true.
This is novel and scary.
Imagine being known on the internet.
Can
I'm
really go one of
scared.
2 ways.
I'm scared and there's wolves outside.
Oh, I heard moths, and I was like, what's the problem with moths?
Just a bunch of
Well, I mean,
elves.
in all fairness, I used to have a fear of moths.
Oh, alright, fair enough then.
I fear most bugs.
Fair.
They are small and their bones are on the outside. What am I supposed to do with this information?
Well, when you put it that way, actually, yeah.
That is
I feel like-
concerning.
With moths, it's less the any danger and more the sheer lack of motor control.
That's true. They're gonna slap
also
into
fair.
different things. Like, the big, I don't know. Like, you describe bugs as that. Now I'm just thinking of them as a bunch of tiny skeletons, and you know what? That's rad. I'm happy with a bunch of tiny skeletons running around the world.
I mean, then that's what crabs are too, then, yeah?
Damn.
You know what? Most crustaceans, yeah.
I think I love shellfish
Skeletons
for...
outnumber us.
Yeah, I love shellfish for a reason. They're the skeletons of the sea.
Everything becomes crab.
They are supposedly the peak of the evolutionary chain, so...
God, I need to find this meme I saw like one time where it's basically like, oh, we're gonna become crab, you fool. We are the crabification of the original mammal. We walk on funny legs. We have the pinchy
Yeah, we
arms.
pinch. Caterpillara says, I didn't tell Sav about the moth directly above his head, leering above him on my ceiling when he offered me coffee.
Oh,
Yes.
Joke's on you. Joke's on you. I no longer fear moths. I can offer you
Oh.
coffee as much as I like. Don't make me come down there. That is my second housemate.
Oh, that's
I
excellent.
say, yeah.
And also one of the players from this game.
Nice.
Oh, COD can't be here but says hi.
Oh, excellent.
Hey there, Cod.
Ahoy!
Hi, Cod.
Every time I see savvy art, I just go, hell yeah, that's right, thank you!
Is
You give
Gusto-
me life. You sustain me.
Your style's so good. It's so good.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this piece of art has been this was a gift for Rob of
I love it.
Graham, and it accidentally was a redraw at the same time, and man, is it a fucking difference?
Caterpillara, thank you so much for the gifted sub.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Astral, Storytime, and Eldred, yes. You never leave. Okay. Well, we've given it about 5. If it's okay with you, are you good? Is everybody here good to start?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Excellent. So, I'm going to start with, of course, the main storyteller and guest of the evening, and then we're gonna go down the list in alphabetical order in the Discord call. But Savvy, say hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Savvy, otherwise known as Eternal Savvy. You can find me on my channel or my Twitter, which is Eternal_Savvy. We're going to be going over part 2 of my my uni game, which was D&D 5th edition. Started off in 4th edition. I'm really fucking excited to get into things because I'm thinking we should be able to get to all of the stuff I had planned, but we never got to. I'm happy to be here.
Ooh, most excellent. As well, we have a player from said game. In Discord, Dusty Shoes.
Hello, my name is Dusty, and I was indeed a player in this game, and that is my character that you're looking at up on the screen in front of you. His name is Graham the Bastard, and he is a bastard.
Excellent. And then our guests for the afternoon, from the top in alphabetical order, Will, say hi.
Hey, I'm Will. You guys have seen me on both channels of Stabbiness and Eternal Savvy before. I do various things, and I'm also the GM of Eben Ward on Surprise Round.
Excellent. And next up, last but not least, Cryptid Paradox, if you could introduce yourself.
Hey, it's I, James, or Jamie. You might have seen me hopping around occasionally in Savvy streams. I post art on occasion in places. You can find me basically anywhere under James DL Crane, if you're interested in that shit. I'm just here to vibe.
Hell yes.
For a
And-
second, I thought you were going to say you can find me anywhere, just under things.
I mean that too. There's a reason why I go by Cryptid Paradox as well around places. I'm just a cryptid, but also kind of a paradox of a cryptid. It's it's a whole thing.
Savvy capitalizes the walls, you capitalize the floors.
Exactly.
Get out of my house!
No, it's comfy here.
Hi.
Oh, thank you.
Last
I'll do my best.
last of all, it's me, Jay, the one who's running the stream today. Let me know if the volume's imbalanced at any point, or the music's too loud, or too quiet, or anything like that, because, OBS updates, and it's been a while since I streamed last, so, you know.
As you do.
Yeah, but yeah, otherwise, basically what we're going to be doing is Savvy's going to be passing me images, etc., and I'm going to be showing them to you on screen. We have one more addition. Very important.
Yes.
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Hello, it's me, Roche. The suddenly arriving reptile.
Yes, the emergent reptile.
I just slid my way in here, like in, that one movie about that one dude and his day off.
Ah, yes, the legendary day off. But yeah, we're gonna be mostly displaying images on screen. It's gonna look something like this. And Savvy, you basically tell me what image you want. I'll put it up and give me any music you want to play. But otherwise, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I won't I won't cover too much of what we did last time, under the assumption that people will be watching in this playlist, but just a brief recap. So this was my old uni game, which I ran for, God, what must have been like at least 2 years, something like that.
2.5.
2.5, something like that. Started off in 4th edition, went over to 5th edition. Mostly my own setting, and we had 7 players. And we had, God, it's always a fucking trek to run through each of the characters. We had Graham the Bastard. Oh, wait a minute. I made notes on this. I have
Ooh.
somewhere that I can. Yeah, I can just look at it in a list rather than having to remember.
Looks at the notes. Remember to write notes. Damn it!
Oh, shit!
I wouldn't be fucking surprised. But we started out. We had Graham the Bastard, who was our human Eldritch Knight fighter.
It is
we
me, the
had-
bastard.
Was played by Dusty Shoes. We had Jinx, who played the Gold Dragonborn Beastmaster Ranger. Lilith, who played our Tiefling Arcane Trickster Rogue. Lucinda, who was our half-elf cleric of healing, Nibbon the Noble, who was our human College of the Blade bard, who was later swapped out for Nextar, the axolotl lizard man totem barbarian, Urist Twelfth Bay, who was our hill dwarf Pact of the Blade warlock, and last of all, Sir Douglas, our tiefling paladin of vengeance. Holy shit! But yeah, we were running over the adventures of them running around in the Kingdom of Hedronar, a kingdom well known for having a propensity for bounty hunting and a problem with having a lot of tieflings everywhere, and historically having generally a pretty bad relationship with tieflings. They did a lot of genocide, let's just say. It was a whole thing. But yeah, no, so last we left off, they had arrived in Hornet Dale, which was basically the second biggest city in the kingdom, and was called Hornet Dale because of the unique mage college which was located there, where their whole deal was that their familiars were swarms of these weird magical hornets, which were like 2 to 3 inches big. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the last thing that we covered was the dealing with the dragon. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that was the
Yeah.
very last thing that we got to, which
It might have been the very last or the second to last. I can't rightly remember.
Yeah, but yeah. So they dealt. So basically, they had dealt with this dragon called Verdun. He was way out of their league, and the barbarian lizard man, Nextar, he managed to go fucking beast mode and just bluff him into leaving them alone. And it was very good. And they returned back and sent off. They asked the city to send off a bunch of horses to placate the dragon. And as a result, kind of pissed off the local officials when that had to be done. So I'm fairly certain that at this point in the game, to get into new material, this was kind of the point where I think we did a few more quote side quests. Is that right, Dusty?
Yeah, I think so. Douglas had his whole initiation ritual when he leveled up, right?
That's right, yeah, because this whole little mission to go get Henry the Paladin, who was like a near legendary level paladin who was trying to deal with the dragon and kind of, couldn't. When they found him and brought him back, Douglas became Sir Douglas, and they all attended his knighting, where he received his big fancy red and gold cloak emblazoned with the symbol of his god. We have a fun little image that we can use for that as well. If you go to, it's called Religious Symbols. So, not all of these are the same as, some of these have changed and some of these were rough drafts, but basically I have like my own unique pantheon of gods that I developed for my setting. And these were some of the symbols that I was developing for them. Douglas and Lucinda both followed the same god, which was Anshar, which was the god of sun, stars, and mystery in the top right there. So that was the big symbol emblazoned on his cloak. But yeah, no, it was done in the big cathedral with like the big cool magical stained glass window, and he sort of just started bumming around with the outcasters. I'm trying to recall, what was the point at which you officially branded yourselves as the Outcasters? Was it the horse debacle that required you?
I think we needed to put a name on our shenanigans and take vague responsibility for it, and so we went with the Outcasters.
That's such a good team name.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think we were we all spellcasters? Every single one of us could use magic, right?
Oh, Lord.
I think literally everyone had some form of magic. Even the barbarian, I think, had like because he had totem stuff, didn't he? Yeah. But so yeah, and they used the Outcasters because Nibbon had suggested it. because they were kind of unofficially the Outcasters, but they became officially on record the Outcasters when they had to kind of register that whole shit. A notable thing was that they had as a result of becoming kind of a known quantity in the city, they had been running into two particular NPCs. One of them was called Nathan, who was the captain of the guard.
Such an asshole.
Who was generally agreed to be an asshole because he was an asshole. And the other one was, I believe, Grash. Was that his name? He was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was like he wasn't the leader of the city. He was like the local council leader. Like you know how you get like kind of districts in different parts of big cities?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't the mayor so much as he was like like the main like community representative essentially. So he handled like handing out bounty rewards and stuff like that. And a notable thing, the reason I'm bringing this up in particular, is I don't think I brought this up last time, but it's a very important aspect of the kingdom. So bounty hunting and everything it's like a very big deal in the kingdom because of like this whole kind of semi-down low idea of like, you know, yeah, we actually reward more for bounties when it's a tiefling, but like we don't outwardly acknowledge that there's like a political reason behind that. So, you know, hand wave, we're just casually continuing with our racist ways kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bad shit. But for bounties and for any instance where somebody would do something beneficial for the kingdom, for like a city or someone significant in the kingdom, what they would always do is that they would offer people, all right, you can either have gold or we can reward you with a favor coin, which was a special currency, which would just they were basically like giant oval coins printed in varying materials, but with very specific like patterning, which basically acted as serial numbers so that they couldn't be duplicated. Each one would have a serial number to a point where if you ever tried to lift one and use it yourself, they could go to the records and just actually like track, okay, this particular coin was earned by this person or group of people for this action, so we know that you stole it. But favor coins were quite powerful because obviously they're not legal tender anywhere, but depending on what level of coin you had and how many you turned in, you could get some like really powerful stuff. But only in that kingdom. Like for example, if you wanted to, you could with enough favor coins just be like, hey, I've been like doing all of this. I've like been doing all of this stuff, and I've been, you know, deciding not to take money from you guys. Can I hand in these 10 higher level coins, and can you just give me a house in like the middle or upper district?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and they'll just be like, here you go. You know, it was kind of like this insidious way of keeping people in the system.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And Grash was responsible for that. And as a result, the Outcasters had actually earned quite a few. I don't remember exactly how many, but you had actually picked up quite a few of them.
Yeah, I think we had like I think we had 2 or 3 of the mid-grade ones and 1 high-grade one.
Yeah, it was something like that. And the dragon debacle was an instance of, we're not giving you a coin. This was a neutral
Exchange, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you dealt with the problems on the road, but like also we just had to pay the fucking mages to you know, polymorph a bunch of mice into horses. So
your reward is not jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was fair.
And as a result of that as well, there was a notable thing that they picked up from the shattered caravans, because the manticores were obviously just picking off people to eat. They weren't stealing anything. So they actually brought back a number of things, one of which was a custom sword. It was a mundane sword, but it had been forged. It was a masterwork forged sword with a message on it, which was basically saying like, congratulations on being accepted into the city guard in Hornet Dale. Love from your grandmother. And it was addressed to someone called Kevin, who was a guard that they actually knew.
Kevin, such a sweet child.
Yeah,
We had to protect Kevin.
he was a private, a recent a lowest level guard, and they had somehow encountered him, and they returned the sword to him, which was a gift from his grandma, and that was nice. But they also found a box of favor coins. Of newly minted favor coins with magical seals on them, so that if anyone ever tried to remove them from the box, people would be magically informed that it had been stolen.
Yeah.
And they brought. Oh no, that's right. You actually got the higher favor coin because you brought that back.
Yes,
that
that's
was right. Yeah, they were like, okay, neutral deal, but you bringing that back and not just fobbing it off to like the Thieves Guild. We'll give you a favor coin for that. Now into some of the more actual like new events that happened. So Graham and Urist, I believe, they went off to investigate a interesting thing that had happened in the city since they had been gone, which was that a very notable murder had happened. Not notable by the person, but notable by the method by which they had been killed. Because their body was found in the hand of a big statue of the king in one of the central courtyards, and it was flayed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So they went there and they were like, we're going to try and help out the guards to get like a couple good points. And also, a flaying is generally a pretty bad thing, especially since we kind of fought a big spirit man who was known as Bronimir the Flayer.
Yep. Yeah, a little bit.
So
Yeah, I
So
think
he
we pretty swiftly found some sort of ghostly residues around the place, and it
And
was
you're
like,
like,
oh, okay,
"Oh,
here we
no,
go again.
Fuck. Round 2, I see.
The banishment was thoroughly botched.
And so they were investigating that. In the meantime, I believe Nextar had gone off to the farmer who had been kind of looking after him for a while.
Yeah.
And I think it was yes, it was at this point, I think. That, or it was in the middle of something else coming up. Point is, at some point during this time, Nextar the Barbarian, who, if you'll remember, we had established he had like a split personality when he was raging.
Yes.
And his other personality had recently revealed his name as Karlish, which is the name of his father, who went berserk when he was hatching, when Nextar was hatching from his egg, and ate all of his siblings, and he hatched in his dad's mouth. So there was all of that, and basically at one point, if I remember correctly, Nextar went back to the home of the farmer, who had been hearing about him getting involved with the Outcasters, and wrote him a letter saying, like, I'm really glad that you're, kind of getting out there and finding people and getting to know people. I hope you do well. So he went back to his house, and his rage mode, Karlish, I don't think the other players found out about this, so I'm revealing it now. He went back and he killed him.
Oh!
Oh,
Yeah.
as you do.
Correction.
Yeah.
That actually happened near the very end of the campaign. That didn't
You're
happen
right.
now. That happened later.
You're right. That happened later, but it did happen, and it was important to note that it. But it was a big thing that it did happen because we'll get to it.
There'd been like these whole roleplay interactions where Nextar had gone back to the farm and done some work and like had life lessons from his adoptive father, which made it very dramatic when he suddenly killed him.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I got some work to do.
it was rough, but
Caterpillar in chat. What?
you'll get a bit more context as to why that happened in a bit.
I
This,
see.
This session.
Holy
But,
shit.
Trust me, we will get that. There was a lot that started happening around here because it really. This is where I think everything started to really hit the fan. So, oh god, there's so many things I have to set up before I get into like the next major thing. Lilith, the tiefling rogue, had started making a habit of going around the slum districts and seeing if people needed help. And the reason for that was because a lot of people in the slum districts would be tieflings, right? Who
Yeah.
were basically like, you know, who were, because of the history of the kingdom, generally shunned.
Yeah.
And she had discovered while she was there, this was when I was throwing out loads of different hooks, basically. She had discovered that a bunch of orphans had been going missing recently. Because there was various kids in the slums who didn't have parents, but were kept track of because the slums were very like, they would look after one another. People
Yeah.
generally tried to keep an eye out. So whenever an orphan would go missing, people would know. And she found out that all of the missing orphans were tieflings, which was a bad time. I believe around this point is Rob, remind me, when was the first time I introduced Nirna?
Oh.
The gnome with the fiery red hair.
Oh, that actually happened first time in the port town, I think was the first time we met Nana. And she reappeared in Hornetdale later.
That's right. Yeah.
we already
that's right.
knew her when she showed up here again.
So, Nirna was kind of she seemed like a bit of a bit part. She had turned up in the previous port town, and she had recently showed up again in Hornetdale. And she had kind of found them and been like, oh, I heard you're a big shot people now, that kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
she was notable because they had figured out that she was a warlock, and she had told them that she was a warlock of this particular Fey spirit, and that was all that she seemed to have going for her. Rob, out of curiosity, did you have any inkling as to what her deal was, or did I do a good job on obscuring that?
I don't think we ever found out for certain. I think we had suspicions that she was running with some of the criminals in an informal capacity, but that was it.
Right, so I will now direct you to the image labeled NPC Fey Spirits.
Always a good time when you deal with the Fae.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So these were two Fey spirits which I was establishing as presences in my world. One of them, I believe, was called Diacta, which was the one on the left side, and the other one on the right was called Vishara. She had told them that she was a warlock of Vishara, who was generally known to be quite a mysterious bug lady spirit who was generally pretty she had some dealings and generally kind of had moments where she would end up butting heads with people, but was mostly quite a bit of an enigma.
Yeah.
And so it was only really her warlocks who knew what her whole deal was. In reality, as I'm sure you can gather where I'm going with this, since there's two Fey spirits on here, Nirna was actually a warlock of Diacta, the scary-looking one on the left.
Oh, excellent.
Diacta, if I'm not mistaken, was a Fey spirit who was generally concerned with vengeance and would make a point of finding people who were hurting particularly badly from grief and would offer them the tools to exact tenfold vengeance on the target of their anger. And I believe his whole thing was that he had 63 teeth and he had 63 warlocks at all times.
That's rad.
So, so she was around, and there was kind of implications that she was part of the whole, what's it called, Thieves Guild. And additionally, the halfling who had originally commissioned the Outcasters to break out the mass murderer from from his containment cell in the previous town, in their first town in Thistlemore, he had also shown up again, Cordale. And he also had with him in tow the now indentured servitude mass murderer who they helped break out.
Of course.
So they were,
Consequences.
so it was very much of like these are the consequences of your action. They now have this horrible mass murderer as a major like asset in their whole deal, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, as a question, right? I know they're basically like a god entity sort of thing. If like one day one of those teeth fell out, they'd be like, well shit, sorry 63rd Warlock, you gotta go. Bye.
It was more the other way round of whenever a warlock would die or would he would release them of service, he would always seek out a new tooth to replace the one which was lost, basically.
I see.
He was he was very vain in that way of like, you know, wanting to reflect himself in his own, you know, warlocks and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, so I think the only other thing to mention is that at one point I think we had the very hysterical moment of there was a bounty that they were chasing up on who was she was a con artist and she had like loads of different names and she was notable for being like a very attractive woman, so she was basically bamboozling like, you know, thirsty, you know,
Yes.
dumbasses, you know. And they tracked her down to a brothel, and there was the hilarious situation where the outcasters, upon discovering that she was hiding out in a brothel, managed to, without thinking about it, select the 3 worst people to go into a brothel specifically, which
Oh.
was
Oh god.
which was the barbarian who would flip between very naive, scared, shy little man and raging asshole. The giant gold dragonborn who was still wrestling with the fact that she may very well have a thing for the fucking cleric at the party. And the disaster bisexual who was Lilith the tiefling, who was just generally like, you know, also kind of falling for, I think, if I remember correctly, I think she was starting to fall for the lizard man guard Ashal, who saved
Yeah.
her life. Yeah.
Shell was a bro.
all 3 of them were just varying levels of awkward and were just not suited to going and investigating a bounty in a brothel. And it all hit them when they were all sat in the middle of a brothel surrounded by half-naked people, and they went, oh, we all hate it here. But they pulled through, and Lilith basically made out that she wanted to, like, pretend booking some time with this con artist lady, and that's right, I think Lucinda that was right, and Lucinda, the very quiet, shy cleric, was there as well, so the 4 best people for the job.
What could
So
possibly go wrong?
they went into there. She went into the room and got the other guys on back up on the door to come in. She actually did a really good job, because the reason that this con artist was doing well at bamboozling people was that she had a wand of sleep that she would use to put people to sleep and steal their shit.
Yeah.
But she concealed it as the clasping mechanism for her corset. So whenever she would, so she'd go to like undress very seductively, and then whoops, I have a wand, sleep, Lilith actually was like legit on point and actually got her crossbow out and told her like, I'm taking you in, before she even managed to go for it. But naturally I was just like, well, she knows she's been made, so she's now reaching for it anyway, and we had a standoff and everything. Long story short, Nextar ended up tackling her out of the second story window of the brothel.
Holy shit.
Amazing.
As you do.
Absolutely great.
They took her in, and they later on then found out that she had managed to bamboozle her way through the guards and escape, and they were like, God damn it. Whatever, we still got paid. Nathan was pissed, and they were like, not our problem, you just told us to bring her in. It was your job to keep hold of her. Anyway, now, the big thing that happened. Upon returning to the city, and kind of generally being like, hey, Von Fifthshield, do you want to roll with us? Here are the Manticore spines. You can make some dope fucking spiked gauntlets with that. The shady figure that Lilith had gone to in order to get the location of Halfhorn's warehouse, he showed up again and pulled her into an alleyway and said, "Hey, so remember how you owe us a favor because we gave you that information and you saved your supposed father figure?" And she was like, "I really don't want to fucking pay you back right now. Can we do it another time?" And they were like, no,
Not
it's
how it
happening
works.
now. So he informs her of basically in the upper districts, there is kind of a political, there's like a political there's some political elections going on soon. And the main two rivals at the moment, I believe I have them written down, but it's not a big deal if I don't. I believe it was Ligarius Fagaramar and Nergon Crest Victor. Very
Holy
high,
shit.
yeah, very hoity-toity names. But the whole deal was that the thieves were basically... God, I forgot that I went into such depth with this. I don't normally get into like the whole like, oh, political estate stuff, right? Like the thieves basically wanted Ligarius to get into power because Ligarius was proposing a new law which would mean that you could treat certain types of storefronts as private property, which would mean that in the given circumstances, the same laws of private property would apply to storefronts as it would homes, meaning that certain stores could deny guards entering at any time without warrants.
Oh.
So it was a very, one thing leading to another. This means you can have, crime havens and money laundering schemes, that kind of thing. So the thieves were like, we want this guy to fucking be in.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, so this other guy, Crest Victor, he's his opposition right now, and he's winning, but part of the reason for that is that we haven't been able to get in on any of his home, he's got really good security. Like, he's not dumb is the thing.
Yeah.
He's proposing stuff which is like generally pretty radical or generally pretty good for the people, but unlike previous people, he was smart about it, and he actually kept a good guard detail, and his house was constantly patrolled by what they believed to be an independent contractor who was fucking hyper vigilant when it came to this stuff, and had like a whole kennel of dire wolves. They basically went, okay, so we want to create a gap in his security because there's this one thing that he has which contributes very heavily because he has this do you know Ioun stones? Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Ioun stones are these magic items that are rocks that float around your head and give you special magical bonuses. Mm-hmm. He had a unique artifact version, which was basically, it looked like a opaque white crystalline eyeball with a spike in the back of it, and it essentially granted him 360 vision. So the whole thing was that even when he was on his own and he was alone, he could thwart any attempts to get at him or beat him up or anything like that, right? So they said, "Hey, Lilith and your gang, we found this one spot in his manor that has a loose bar on the cage on the fence. We want you to infiltrate there, and we want you to find where he keeps this special eyeball, and we want you to steal it." The obvious thing being they're just being like, "Oh, we just need you to steal this one item." In small print so that we can assassinate him. So she breaks the news of like, guys, we need to get into the upper district and we need to
Assisted
go
assassination.
Yeah, and she only tells, I think it was Graham, Urist, Jinx. I think that was the only people she told. Because she was like, I'm not telling the paladin or the cleric.
They're not gonna
because
like this very much.
They're not gonna, yeah, they're not gonna like this plan.
Collecting all the morally ambiguous members of the party in one place.
Yeah,
What could possibly go wrong?
So, at this point as well, the paladin had been kind of getting in the good graces of this one guy who was called... No, he was getting in the good graces of some of the border guards for the upper district. And he had been kind of chatting them up and just generally getting on the good side of, like, the local authorities, that kind of thing. And I believe they fed Douglas and Lucinda some bullshit story of, like, we fucked up recently with the town, so we're gonna go to the upper district and offer our services to try and like kind of get in their good books, but don't tell anyone we're actually going there to steal from them. So they go into the upper district. I believe Graham was keeping Douglas in check. Lucinda went to go help out in their hospitals, and so did Douglas. And while Douglas was there, he met an eccentric rich guy called Mikhail, who was into artifacts, and he ended up inviting him over for tea and dinner at his mansion and go through his various artifacts, and that was going to lead into some like adventure hooks later of Mikhail letting Douglas to go get a hold of certain artifacts and stuff with the party.
That's fun.
Meanwhile, the heist was going down.
Meanwhile, crime.
Meanwhile, crime. We've got a map we could show off.
Ooh.
2 maps, in fact,
Oh.
labeled Map Mansion 1 and 2.
Ooh, excellent. Okay, starting with Mansion 1.
So this is how I used to do maps.
Oh.
I had a whole pad of square paper to just lay out various floor plans of places. I'm still really fucking happy with this mansion map. It was really properly thought out.
Yeah, no, it looks
Oh
good.
yeah.
As someone who makes mansion maps all the time, can I just screenshot this? No reason.
Yeah, no, feel free, man. Feel free.
Bless you.
So, by the way, if anyone ever wants to stop me and ask questions, please do. I get self-conscious of the fact that I'm just talking.
No,
you're good.
you've had a good flow. If there was anything that I'm like, excuse me, what the fuck, I will stop you.
Yeah, if I'm ever being unclear, please interrupt me. So, basically, I believe the general game plan was Urist, Lilith, and Jinx. And the reason it was only 3 of them was because they wanted to keep their footprint as low as possible, but that was the minimum set of party members they needed in order to cover every single thing that they needed to go undetected.
Gotcha.
Because Lilith at that point was like, I'm just going to buy a cloak of Elvenkind, no reason. Not to give me extra stealth or anything. And then I believe they had Urist, because Urist could cast invisibility on everybody, because he picked that up as a warlock spell. And Jinx was there because they had picked up a scroll of Pass Without a Trace, and that is on the Ranger spell list. So it was a combo of, we need Lilith there because this is the job that she's doing, and she's also the rogue and can lockpick. Urist is going to be covering the invisibility, and Jinx is going to be covering Pass Without a Trace, to make it so that for all intents and purposes, the only way that people will be able to detect us is if they walk into us or notice us opening doors. They go around to the back, and if you're on the bottom floor, you can see at the top is the back garden, which faces the conservatory. That was where their infiltration point was, where there was there was one bar on the iron wrought fence which was loose at the top, so that you could bring it aside and basically slip in with some difficulty, which was like exactly what the Thieves Guild had been looking for a while. If I remember correctly, I think they actually loosened the bolts themselves, and that was all they ever got time for. Was they could never actually loosen the defenses enough to do anything beyond. One guy goes around the back, loosens the bolt, then all of a sudden the fucking wolves are coming around on patrol, and he had to leave.
Damn.
They
Out
were,
of curiosity, what level was the party at this time?
I believe, level 6, 5 or
Okay.
6.
That
They
sounds
got some-
about right.
They got some meat on their bones. All right.
Yeah, no,
Who wants to eat?
they weren't pushovers. And keep in mind, a lot of the time I had to really pump stuff up because there was 7 players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I don't
we
know
had-
how you lived through us.
I'm convinced, looking back, that it was purely by virtue of having ADHD that I managed it. But anyway,
It
So-
probably helped that a lot of the time it seems like they split up to do various other side of things, so they'd be in smaller groups.
yeah, and I will give the party credit. One thing that I really loved about them, and was also heartbreaking for me because it meant that I would miss out on a lot of this because I could only direct my attention to one group at a time. They were fucking phenomenal and amazing at just whenever I wasn't paying attention to them, they would just role play and discuss stuff on the side without me,
Oh,
and
that's
that
cool.
was
Oh.
honestly great because it meant I got loads of cool surprises where there were plans that I hadn't
That's
heard about
really
because
cool.
I couldn't. It was really cool. I unfortunately missed some very good moments as a result of that. One of which we'll be coming up on in this later on. But love them to bits. I can't thank them enough for being such great players. Half of having a group that big and having it work is having players that are actually well behaved and
Yeah.
and having a
Yeah.
good time and being good sports about it. It also
Oh,
very much
shucks.
it also very much helped that whenever I would say, "Hey guys, shut the fuck up and pay attention to me," they would always listen. So they infiltrated, and here's the thing: the Thieves Guild had no idea where the fuck he was storing this fucking thing. So if you'll direct your attention to the map, you'll notice how many rooms there are. And you'll also recall that Pass Without a Trace has a fairly limited time on it.
Yeah.
So it was actually surprisingly tense because we were doing like a pseudo countdown of just like, okay, you've just done X, Y, and Z. I'll count that as 5 minutes off your timer. You've just done, A, B, and C. I'll count that as 15 minutes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we had a running countdown, and there was like, it was tense because they couldn't turn lights on or anything. I believe they were being led around, but I believe the warlock had devil sight, which meant that he could see in literally every form of darkness,
Yeah.
even magical darkness. So he was leading them around whenever there was like magical darkness fuckery or whatever. But they had to skirt around like several dire wolf patrols on the outside. The thing that took them off guard was that they so far as they had been made aware by the Thieves Guild, there was only dire wolf patrols on the outside. They got blindsided when they went into the house and they found dog patrols, but they also found out that there was actually a handful of dire wolves without handlers because they were so well trained, which was unusual, by the way. They were patrolling on their own through the hallways.
Oh wow.
And the thing was, Pass Without a Trace was doing them such a fucking favor because if they did not have Pass Without a Trace, even with invisibility, the dire wolves, I think they have scent as an ability, which
Yeah.
means that the jig would have been up instantly if
Yeah.
they didn't have that. I think what ended up happening was what the closest moment they had was they were walking up the stairs and that was when they found out the direwolves were in the house as well, because they ran into one of the direwolves coming down the stairway, and the direwolf took up the entire width of the stairwell, and they were in the middle of the stairs. So they had two choices: either very, very noisily run down the stairs or jump over the banisters and the jig is up, or stay where they are and the wolf is going to brush up against them, sense that something is wrong, and alert everybody. It was a bad moment. I believe most of them. I think Lilith managed to bail because she had Cloak of Elvenkind and was a thief, and I believe, I can't remember who it was, but someone fucked up and the wolf managed to brush up against them, and being a well-trained guard dog, didn't do the whole like sniff what's going on. He just immediately went to bark because it was like,
Yeah.
something's up. This is not good. Something's up. And so we had a initiative roll off where it was Lilith who had the best initiative versus the direwolf's initiative to see who could act first. And then Lilith had to try and do enough damage in one attack with her sneak attack to kill it in one go.
Holy shit.
And she straight up did.
Oh, that rules.
Yeah.
If
Super
I
secret
remember-
third option: shoot it in the goddamn face.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was by virtue of the fact that she had, I think her crossbow had a special ability, which was like, I think once, because she could always convert the crossbow into electric damage, no problem, and it had a +1 anyway as electric damage. But I think it also had the special ability of like once per combat or once per day or something, she could add an extra d6 of lightning damage.
Yeah.
And she decided to do that because it was,
Yeah.
and I believe it was that singular d6 which tipped it over the edge to kill it.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
And
yeah.
Spicy.
so yeah, killed it in one go, and they started making their way through, and it was the very fun moment of like communication breakdown. The near communication breakdown happened on the second floor of the mansion. They broke into the second floor, I should mention. They went up to the overlooking balcony for the amphitheater with the where the minstrels, you should see minstrels gallery and balcony.
Yes.
On the second floor. So on the
Lovely.
balcony, because there was
Yes.
no patrols or anything at the time there, they had a brief moment where they could like kind of gather themselves and see what their resources and what their time on their Pass Without a Trace was like. And I think they had something like 15 or 20 minutes left, and they had only explored like, I think 5 rooms or something like that. And they had this whole moment of like, they were like, we have 20 minutes to fucking find this thing. What we need to make a fucking decision right now as to, because we've scouted a couple of locations. Where are the most likely locations where he might be keeping this thing? And they were like, the only thing that we can think of is that it might be in his fucking bedroom, because that is like the most personal place that you could keep something, right? Like, and they have this big argument where they have like whisper shouting at each other of just like, I think Lilith was voting for, we need to fucking try the bedroom as a last-ditch effort to try and get this thing. Otherwise, the fucking Thieves Guild is gonna like straight up send someone to kill me. And I think Urist was arguing, we need to leave because I think it's gonna take 15 minutes for us to get out of here. I think that was the thing. And meanwhile, Jinx was just there like. But they eventually said, all right, we'll go to the bedroom, and if it's not there, we have to bail. They went there, and Color them surprised again when, upon getting to the end of the hallway where the door to the master bedroom was, the door opened, and Crest Victor walked out of that bedroom, which was both a blessing and a curse of, if he goes away for long enough, we have free reign of his bedroom. But we are also going to be on a fucking timer, because
Yep.
I don't think there's going to be a fucking way out of that room beyond the one door. commence another argument of what the fuck do we do. Now, at this point, I want to point out something funny.
Yeah.
So, I'll ask you guys, can you spot anywhere on this map which is obviously the location of where they might be keeping something important and expensive?
I'm scanning it pretty close.
I mean, there is a thing called Vault.
Vault, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was, unsurprisingly, a hidden vault.
Ah.
I should mention, there was a chance they could find this, because if it was very much, I was expecting that they would kind of see a room with a lot of, like, you know, trophies and stuff and think, oh, there must be a trick door somewhere around here, right? So first of all, there was that, and also I would have pointed out with a good enough insight/perception check while they were exploring the right-hand side rooms there, that the chapel on the left-hand, as you could see on the left-hand side of the vault, they would have noticed that the chapel is not as big as the other two rooms in terms of how far back it goes. And that would have been a clue into the fact of there must be a secret room somewhere around here. It was unlikely, I will give it that, it was difficult, right?
Yeah.
But I had faith in my players. Maybe they pull something out, right?
Yeah.
Your faith was misplaced.
It was misplaced. But do you want to know a funny thing? So remember how I said that they infiltrated the house on the second floor?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess what room they infiltrated into.
Oh my god, did they just go into the secret room?
They infiltrated into the room directly above the vault, the master's living room. Their first point of entry was exactly where they needed to be, and they immediately left the room.
Oh my god.
At that point, I was like, this is over.
Oh, no.
Holy
Oh, that's
shit.
horrible.
It was so I was expecting them to like fucking rummage through every single room, but for them, their attitude was, we've just gotten in through this window. If anyone spotted us or glanced anything, we need to be out of our we need to be gone from our infiltration point as soon as possible.
Oh, I super
Why
get
would we
it,
remain
yeah.
here? Yeah, it made sense. It was just unfortunate
Yeah,
that it was exactly
so
what it needed
unfortunate.
to be. Fucking hell. Anyway.
Of course.
The resolution was spicy, so this is why I love my players. While they were arguing, one of the guards had gone up to Logarius and was talking to him outside of his room because he had found the dead body of the fucking direwolf.
Yeah.
And he was like, someone's in the fucking house, we need to get you somewhere safe right now. Or that's what they were saying, they couldn't hear that that's what they were saying. In the middle of them arguing at the other end of the hallway, the jig's up, we need to fucking leave, Urist stands up, drops his invisibility, walks down the hallway to the two of them, and goes, You are in severe danger. Someone is here to kill you.
Oh, that's a big ball play.
Oh,
That's
that's
a bold
so
play right
good.
there.
Obviously, the guards descend on them like a pack of vultures and take them in. Urist is just like, roll with it, don't resist.
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
So, they
Pro
get
gamer move.
they get thrown into the oubliette, which is the dungeon, basically.
Yeah.
The Lilith pulls out the big dick play of, I go, there's no beds down here, you have to sit on the floor. And she goes, no, we don't. I have like 2 giant bolts of silk in my bag of holding for some reason. I create a nest.
I'm pretty
She
sure
had a
we got
great
those off the
night's
Manticore caravan.
Yeah, that's right. So, come the next day, they haven't returned. And the party's like, oh fuck, something's gone wrong. That night, I believe Graham, upon being like, they're overdue, he went and I think investigated what was going on, and he saw that there was commotion in the mansion when he passed by it, and he was like, well, and just
Here we go.
left. And
I
the
was
next
on a-
morning,
I was on aerial reconnaissance duty for that, using Graham, my owl familiar, to just sort of keep tabs on stuff. And then it was just sort of like, oh yeah, there's loads of shouting and lights and movement. It's like, well, jig's up.
Yep.
Time to bounce.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think the rest of the Outcasters got informed that this was happening, and I think that they were like allowed to kind of come by and like make a case, right? But it was they were not just immediately like reunited. What happened was the independent contractor guard that I mentioned. I believe I know I have his name here somewhere. Here we go, yeah. So his name was, I believe it was either... Yeah, no, it was Marlaron. Marlaron was this elf dude who was like this really like battle-scarred veteran who had served in the fucking 100-year in the 100-year war of the kingdom. So he was an elf from the woods, from Alvale Woods, and Alvale Woods was notorious for being the last and most difficult conquest of the kingdom that Hedronar had to go through, and he was somebody who had been fighting on the front line of that years and years and years ago. He did not fuck around. He, as a ranger, had several bonded companions. He had Alea the Blink Dog, Revan the Giant Centipede, and then I believe also just a regular a regular Alsatian as well. But he basically showed up, and he brought them out of the oubliette, and he was like, okay, so you've said that, these guys are like, were here to assassinate, my guy here last night. Why should I believe you? Why should I fucking believe you at all, right? So they pull out the normal cards of like, we're the Outcasters, we're good guys, we have a name around here, and he goes, okay, he kind of sends off one of his guys to go get that checked out to see, are these guys actually the Outcasters? And then I think that I've pulled out this great big dick play, right? This silver bullet, almost literally, where he holds up the crossbow bolts that he extracted from the skull of the dead direwolf, right? And can people still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
No, we're good. Don't worry.
I was
Listening
just concerned because my
Very
headphones sometimes die. Anyway,
Yeah.
he pulled out this bolt, and it was meant to be my big silver bullet of "I've got you," right? Now, here's the part where where I dicked myself over, but I was so happy that it happened because it meant that the players had been like paying attention, right? I, in the past, had actually put the side mechanic into the crossbow, where a trade-off, a very small trade-off for using the 1d6 lightning damage on the crossbow was that the bolt was not recoverable because it would burn it out.
Oh.
So I try to pull it out, and then Lilith and like a couple of other players, they just go, no, I used the extra d6. That thing would have burnt up in its skull. And I was like, you're right. So
Maybe so.
I didn't want to make the big reveal like completely redacted, so I just said that he had extracted a bit of the crossbow bolt, but it was burnt, right? And thus it was ambiguous as to whether the feathers on it were green like the ones from Lilith's crossbow bolt quiver. And I believe he basically went like, I think his general thing was like, there's no way that I can tell for certain that like this was definitely fired from your bow or anything, like from your crossbow or whatever. Or at least he kind of made it enough of a... He had enough doubts about him that he was like, okay, either these guys are really stupid or they're telling the truth. And it didn't help that my GM curse was also in full force, where I couldn't roll an insight check to save my life.
Fuck yeah!
We made so many just brazen, provable bullshit statements and defenses, and you didn't get any of them.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I think the dragon beforehand had like a +5 to his insights, and I couldn't roll to save my life. I had given this guy, Malaron, an insight of like +8 or 9, and I was like, there's no way I can roll low enough that I'm not going to catch at least one fucking lie. No. Fuck me.
I don't think you rolled above a 5 in that interrogation.
I did not. Every time I rolled above a 5 and thus got myself like a 14, they managed to roll better than me on the bluff. So it ended up being like that he didn't have enough solid evidence that he could legally keep them imprisoned anymore, because I think the rules in the city were something like you were legally allowed to keep somebody on your personal in personal oubliettes and stuff for like 1 night unless you have solid evidence that you can provide. So he had to let them go. But as a result, the politician guy, he came upstairs. He came out on a balcony because they were conducting the interrogation in the library. He came out onto one of the balconies in the library, and from the safety of up there, he basically like looked down on them and he said like, "Hey, are they telling the truth?" And Marlaron was like, "As far as I can tell, if they're lying to me, I can't pick up on it. But more importantly, they're at the very least not here to kill you. They're not here to harm you, right? Like, whatever it was that was going on here, these guys are not malicious, right?" So this politician, who now has the eye on him, by the way, in his own home, circling around his head, and they basically put together, oh, he's never gonna have that thing off him now.
Yeah.
He's gonna be fucking sleeping with that thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they not only have they fucked the mission, they've also meant that now the Thieves Guild are never going to be able to get that thing off of him.
So much
Yeah.
harder, yeah.
We very much had sort of a trading consequence of, okay, we're going to dob in the Thieves Guild and renege on our debt to them, but also not die right now,
Yeah.
which will have consequences.
I
believe-
like this rolling theme of like missions can just go bad. Like
Yeah.
it's not death, but like you found a way to mitigate the consequences. But like this is mission failed.
Yeah.
Our
Mission
party
failed.
Our party motto might as well have been damage control.
No, I like that a lot actually.
So that wraps up by the politician issuing a genuine thank you, and then being let go, surprisingly. But at the doorway, when they were about to be reunited with the rest of their party, there was another tense moment, because I mentioned earlier that one of Marlaron's bonded companions was a blink dog, and blink
Love
dogs
those
have
things.
they are very cool, and they also have a unique ability, which is detect alignment. They can just detect what they have a cone of vision that they can activate to detect what alignment you are. So basically what happens is they're at the door and the blink dog pops in front of them to intercept them. He's not aggressive or anything, but the blink dog, and I will remind you, blink dogs are like human level intelligence.
Yeah.
He
Smart
calmly walks up to Lilith, and Urist, he knew out of character, and I whatever, fuck it. I like that he would know it in character as well. He knew that this thing had detect alignment, so he was like, oh fuck, and immediately started casually hiding behind Jinx, because he was like, I cannot get caught in that because I am straight up evil.
I think that's the only time in the entire game that Urist was like palpably afraid.
Because he was like, I am a warlock who is I am a warlock who is fucking in leagues with a straight up greater devil. Like, I cannot be caught in this fucking code. And but the dog, right? So Malaron had unfortunately, as a veteran, had some degree of the whole prejudices of the kingdom kind of instilled into him. So he had instructed the dog to just check out Lilith, who was the tiefling.
Yeah.
So fortunately for Urist, the only one that he was doing detect alignment on was Lilith, and Lilith is chaotic good.
Nice.
So Malaron made a very quizzical face when the dog turns to him and gave him a signal, not just of neutral but of good. And he was like, huh.
Oh, shit, okay.
And that for him actually sold him on the idea that they were here to warn them. But the very fucking heavy line that came out of Lilith's player during that moment was, I was just describing the scene of this celestial dog walking up to her, its eyes shining with this golden veneer as it examined her, and she reached her hand out to it and just whispered, "I don't want to die."
Oh.
And I was just like,
Oh.
emotional damage.
Christ.
But yeah, so they get let go, and the guy, the hooded individual, has one last conversation with Lilith, which basically amounts to, "Did you get it?" And she goes, "No." And he goes, "I know you didn't. We already found out what happened last night. I just wanted to hear it from you." And then she went one step further and said, "Fuck you. I'm not involving myself with you anymore." And then he basically responded, "You need to be careful about saying that. If you don't offer right now to do something else to make up for it, you are not going to basically implying we are going to kill you and all of your friends."
Yeah.
And she just went, "No, we're done. It's over." And then he was like, "Well, expect to be hearing from us," basically.
Oh.
He disappears. And she comes back. I can't remember if she told the party that they were now on a death watch, but
I'm pretty sure that we'd all assumed that we were going to be in the bad books of the criminal organization, but I don't think she elaborated on the fact that she'd said, fuck off.
Yeah. I think that was it. So, this is where things got real spicy. There was a number of things that started happening. I think, if I remember correctly, was this when Liliana happened?
I don't think so. I think that was all post-Darius moments.
Was it? Yeah. Yes. That was post the whole boss fight, right?
Yeah, that was after the whole of the next thread gets resolved.
Okay, right. So, things continue as normal for a while. Graham studying with the B mages, all of that nonsense, right? Graham at this point had been discovering some interesting information. There was it. I think you discovered that there was this language which was connected to 3 other language, which was giant, dragon, and demon, I think, or devil, or something like that.
Yeah.
Infernal. And so this strange.
Sorry. It was infernal, abyssal, and giant.
Huh.
That's it. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really interesting.
Huh.
So basically, I think you had been given a phrase. I think I'd fed you a phrase in a dream. That's right, the Festival of Dreams.
Yes.
There is a event in my setting there is a holiday on a specific day of the year, and the Outcasters all pretty much partook in it, which was the Festival of Dreams, which is, it is a day of the year that happens every year where basically the afterlife, the veil of the afterlife is at its thinnest and the closest to reality than any other point in the year.
Oh.
And during that time, everyone will generally have vivid dreams, but it will generally only sometimes be prophetic.
Yeah.
But the reason it became a holiday was because a lot of people discovered basically certain herbs and concoctions and mixtures, which would basically break down some of the inhibitions in your mind to allow your brain to be more receptive to those prophetic dreams.
Yeah.
So it was basically treated as a holiday because if you wanted to, you could purchase one of these, like, people do it in teas and candy and like loads, however you wanted to have it, where you would have it as a sleepy time tea before you go to bed, and you could have a prophetic dream which could pertain to how the rest of your year is going to go.
Oh.
That's very cool.
Very, very tarot, that kind of thing. For me as a GM, it was an opportunity to be very cryptic and you know,
Yeah.
all of that kind of thing, and maybe give information that I normally couldn't feed to players otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the majority of people partook in it, and there was a couple of dreams which happened which were really unsettling for the players. Where shall we start? Rob, do you want to describe your dream first? I think we... Did you write... I think I still have the document of you writing it down, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was God, I think it was all sort of like a sort of silvery, sort of like mountainous, barren hellscape sort of situation. And
Graham's
lots of
dream, we've still got it.
amazing.
Yeah, so Rob... sorry, I just said your name. Whatever.
Fine.
So Graham's dream, he did us the wonderful service of writing it down. So let me, if you're interested, I shall read it out. Graham stands in a landscape that is made of shining silver. Rivers of mercury run through rolling hills. 5 figures made of shining silver stand atop one of the hills, and behind them, an enormous creature on 4 legs with 2 enormous wings. Graham moves towards them. The 5 figures back away with disgusted looks on their faces. Graham notices that his aura is a polluted grey, in stark contrast to the shining silver around him. The creature speaks to Graham. We couldn't remember the exact wording, but it was something mysterious along the lines of Graham's legacy and his power. The scene shifts. Graham is standing between 2 points. On one side is a closed sarcophagus. On the other, Graham sees 3 people, strongly resembling his previous party from his from prior to the Outcast days, and I believe they were the ones who all died. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Thromit, Farbar, and Kerbur were their names.
Yeah.
And behind them are 7 others who unsubtly are basically the outcasters that he knows now. Graham moves towards the sarcophagus, covered in an ancient script that Graham had been researching. He opens it, and inside is a giant eye with a triangular pupil staring back at him. Graham hears whispering, beckoning him to come and learn the secrets of the past, and he looks over his shoulder, silver tears running down the faces of the figures behind him. They say, "Save us, you aren't strong enough," and Graham halts in confusion, torn between the 2 paths, and a giant form appears above him. Indecisiveness, be gone. A giant smashes Graham, scattering him into thousands of droplets of silver, eventually reforming standing on a dock, and on the other side of him is a boat and a silver island in the far distance. And on the other, a library. Graham decides to enter the library. Books rain down from the shelves, ancient symbols and words cascade from their pages and hang floating in the air. A single book sits on the lectern at the back of the library, the same passage that Graham had found in his research staring back at him. Nug vivo Gerndelm. The giant 4-legged creature appears and speaks once more. Discover the secret of your power, Graham. Only you can control it. Nug vivo Delmgan. The creature beats its wings, and the crashing force and roaring noise of the wind wakes Graham up. That was the kind of dream that I
That's
took every player
awesome.
outside of the room.
That's so cool.
It's pretty spicy.
There were a lot of backstory hooks in there, and lots of various elements of Graham's character, which was pretty terrifying to experience, honestly. And
That's
also,
so cool.
worth clarifying as well, in the dream sequence where there were these junctions, Sav asked me as the player where Graham was going. It wasn't on rails. I got to pick which direction it went into.
Oh, that's fun.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I took every single player outside of the room in turn and
Holy
did a
shit.
little mini thing where they each got 3 choices of what they wanted to do in the dream, and I would give them different parts of their prophetic dream in order to get a little bit of insight of like what's going to go on, right? Unfortunately, we didn't have the other ones written down, but if I remember correctly, I believe Nextar's was a dream akin to, I believe he was at the center of a whirlpool of a sea of blood, and he was fighting himself in that whirlpool. All of a sudden, he was, and it was his other self, right, that he was fighting.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he was given the choice between striking the finishing blow against his other self, or accepting the help from the rope that had appeared atop the whirlpool where the outcasters had appeared. And I believe there was also a point where he had to make a choice between following his totem animal, the hummingbird, or following his other self into the Sea of Blood. It was basically me asking him to make a choice between like his barbarian side and his totem side. If I'm not mistaken, I think he picked the totem side, and I gave him a little bonus after that dream, which I think buffed his. It buffed his special movement from his totem ability,
Oh.
or something along those lines. I think I might have just given him like an extra 5 foot of movement or something like that. It was pretty powerful. So, oh god, I'm trying to remember all of them. Lucinda had a dream where she was basically wandering through caves and was encountering statues of people that she knew, and her mother, and also her father in a cloak, and his hand was covered in scales, which was basically like implied, because her whole backstory was that her mother was succumbing to a disease that was turning her into stone slowly. Which was why she was a cleric and trying to find a way to heal her.
Yeah.
Jinx, I believe, she had a pretty traumatic PTSD flashback dream of herself being trapped underneath the carts that got totaled when several of her tribe got killed, because she had a whole thing where I believe her father was the previous leader of a dragonborn tribe that lived in the forest. And when he was ousted and overthrown, her father stayed behind and risked being killed and was killed. I don't know if she found that out, though. I think she kind of suspected it, but never had it confirmed, and I was going to confirm it to her at some point. But there was this horrifying moment where basically her caretaker, which was a red dragonborn, she was in a carriage to take her out of the forest and escape that political hell, that political, dynamite, which was going to probably end up with Jinx being killed. And in the process, they were ambushed, and when the cart went over, Jinx was trapped underneath the cart while her caretaker was slaughtered.
Damn.
So she basically had a dream where she was presented with that again, and that was like kind of the reason why she had 20 strength, if I'm not mistaken, was she swore to herself that she'd never be too weak to save the people she cared about again.
Oh.
And I believe there was like a choice between deciding to save her caretaker and deciding to save her new friends or something like that.
Ooh.
That one was a little foggy for me, but the main thing, if we go back to the Hornet Dale map,
Yes.
let me open that as well, because I want to be able to properly direct you. If we go back to the Hornet Dale map, then you should be able to see Alvale Forest, not Hornetdale, sorry, the Kingdom map.
Ah,
Kingdom
yes.
of Hedron. Sorry, yeah. The Kingdom map, you can see that in
Is it just,
Alvale
what's
Woods.
the file called? Is it called Kingdom of or Map? Map
Map
Kingdom of
dash
Hedronar,
Kingdom.
yeah.
There we go.
Got
Sorry.
it.
So you can see that there's that river that cuts through Alvale. And there's also a big shaded out area that is like a massive swath of the forest just completely like cut through. That is a notable part of the forest that is known as Blightscar, which is basically it is widely considered to be where the war ended because Alvale Woods was Alvale Woods, and thus Barash, the capital city of the elves that you can see there on the very edge of that scar. Barash and that city were the last defense against Hedronar and were the major force that was opposing Hedronar in completely taking over the region.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, I hope some cool deeds are esteemed here.
You ain't wrong. That White Scar is an entire area of the woods, and I like. It's worth noting this entire region is the width of Germany and France put together. Blightscar is like fucking.
Shit.
Blightscar is fucking huge. It is
Oh
just
my God.
It is horizon to horizon, just nothing but burnt, still smoldering forest.
Holy shit.
Because
God
a special chemical fire that had no way of being put out except with another chemical was chemical warfare.
Yeah.
It was unleashed on the woods near enough by Barash that if basically they issued an ultimatum of if you do not surrender and join the kingdom, then we will leave the fire to blaze through the entirety of the rest of Alvale and Barash as a result. And if you don't join us, you will just die. So naturally, when the fires reached their doorstep, Barash finally caved and said, "Fine, you've won. We will join the kingdom." And then they went through the process of basically airdropping this chemical to put out the fires.
Holy shit.
Blightscar was where Jinx's caretaker and her were ambushed. So that was, if she ever returned to Blightscar, that would have been some bad PTSD flashbacks.
Ah, gotcha.
I'm gonna try and blaze through the other dreams. I'll leave Urus and Lilith to last because they had some pretty in-depth ones. Douglas, I believe, had like a dream where he was basically floating amongst the stars and had a brief conversation with his god, who talked about the idea that he should pay attention to his aura because his aura was actually unique and he hadn't realized it. Most people only develop one magical aura. By most I mean everyone. I had basically twisted a little bit of miscommunication between us into an actual canonical thing about him. We had gone back and forth on describing Douglas's magical aura as either being blazing sun orange or a green flame. And we kind of never really decided on which one it was until eventually I just canonized that it was both, and they switched between the two. And basically, that doesn't happen. People don't end up with two different colored auras. So that was his backstory hook. Then, who am I forgetting? Help me out here.
Lucinda?
I've been over Lucinda. Hers was the statues and stuff.
Yeah. I think it got everyone.
I think that's everyone. So I'll move on to Urist and Lilith. Lilith, her one was very fun because this was so unbeknownst to her, Lilith got the dream that tied into the main story. She was adrift in a smoky void, and she basically got to listen in to. I believe she had some dreams of having a happy family with her mother and father, but like, just they were a family and they hadn't experienced all the trauma that they had. But then she was in a smoky void and she heard two voices, two distinct different voices who were not her parents, talking with one another. And I basically had her making perception checks in order to see what parts of the conversation she picked up on. And I believe she ended up catching the parts of the conversation, which were basically, it's intriguing that this, referring to her, it's intriguing that this one has gotten so far. I wonder why that is. We should probably keep an eye on her. And the other one musing on the fact that normally tieflings don't get this far, or normally tieflings don't manage to have kids like this. Because if you remember, Lilith is a tiefling, but she is a rarity in that she is the daughter of two other tieflings. And these two voices were basically remarking on the fact that they're going to keep an eye on her because she is a rarity in this kingdom. And then Urist. Urist's dream wasn't a dream. Urist was just, he had a meeting with his patron where, that's right, at this point they had a house. Because I remember this dream for Urist was set in their house, right? That was the fake out. I think I have a map for this as well. Map.
Let's see.
Outcaster's house.
Map Outcaster's house.
So this was the floor plan.
There you go.
This, if I'm not mistaken, they ended up getting this on the cheap with with enough money and a couple of favor coins, because this was a cursed piece of real estate, because it was the house of one of the werewolves that ended up killing a lot of people and ended up dying themselves.
Oh,
so,
I'm gonna have to stop you there and offer a quick correction.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Lysandra gave us this house, which must mean that meeting happened shortly after the festival, or before it.
You mean Liliana? Yeah.
Liliana, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
okay. In which case, we'll cycle back to Liliana after this. Sorry, you had to jump around a bit.
That's good.
So yeah, basically, this mysterious figure Liliana basically had granted them this house, not really as a gift so much as a, hey, my fucking the real estate agents have been fucking complaining up a storm that the fact that this is a fucking empty house. So here, you guys have it, so that we don't have to fucking deal with this. So they got this house and they sorted it out. Urist's room was on the first floor, or I guess second floor for you Americans.
What?
And the long room that bordered the balcony on the top there, Urist walked out into that in the morning and noticed that there was no one on the streets, and that's when he clocked onto the fact of this is the dream. And then he has a very cool moment of like, all right, you scaly bastard, stop playing coy, where are you? He hears the shuffle of a chair behind him, turns around, and that's where we see Pentrivolus. I can't remember if I've shown you Pentrivolus yet, so let me direct you to Devil, Pentrivolus Sketch 1 and 2, and also just the one labeled Pentrivolus.
Ah, I see. I will move through.
The first two are very early sketches I had of him. And the last one was a more solidified design I had for Pentrivolus. Yeah, if you just go to the one that's labeled Devil Pentrivolus and just keep it on that one.
Oh, a lizardy boy.
Yes, very important.
Sneaky boy.
Love that.
Yeah, so basically, Pentrivolus, I was not slick with his name. He had Pent in his name because he was actually a giant snake devil that was made up of 5 other snake devils. They not in the sense that they were 5 different people. They were all still him. It's just that he could basically separate his arms and legs off, and they would morph into additional giant snake devils, which were still him. Pentrivolus was Urist's patron, and he basically has a meeting, and he says to him, "Hey, Urist, you've been doing a pretty good job. I had a right old laugh when you took down that grudge devil. I'm especially amused by the fact that you took his pike and are now using it, because that's hysterical. So I'm going to need you to do something for me, Urist." And he's like, "Yeah, what's that?" And he goes, "So, I'm gonna start pointing you in the right direction as to the people who killed your clan, because his Urist's whole thing was, I don't know if I've explained this. Urist became a warlock, and if he's in chat, he can correct me if I get anything wrong. His dwarven city was in the process of sorting out a movement, of setting out a port town outpost on the west coast of the kingdom, hence why he was called 12th Bay, because they were basically he was part of the group of people who were going to go there and set up that outpost. However, on the way there, when they were passing through one of the cliff canyons, a suspiciously well-timed rock slide happened and killed basically all of his clan. He survived, and he spotted up on the cliffs that there were definitely people up there. When he got to the top of the cliffs, he found a infernal summoning circle. And he basically put together, whoever did this must have had something going on with devils. So I'm going to complete this broken circle again in the hopes that I can maybe figure out what devil it was. Or find a devil who can help me figure out what's going on, right? Because, like, if there's devil shenanigans going on here, at the very least another devil's going to be able to help me out with this. He noticed that some of the runes finished themselves before he could.
Oh.
And that's when Pentrivolus showed up. And he was like, what the fuck? I was trying to summon the devil who was here before. And Pentrivolus was like, yeah, no, I kind of muscled in before anything happened, because I basically want you as a fucking warlock. And he was like, okay. And he was like, obviously, in exchange, I'm going to help you track down the people who did this, because I have some leads. Because I was basically like, kind of, why do you think I was around the summoning circle? Because on my end, I was able to spot what was going on, right? So here's the deal. You do some stuff for me, and I'll help you track down the people who killed your clan, right?
Yeah.
Deal is made. Pentrivolus, now in this dream, is like, okay, here is the thing that I would like you to do, because I haven't really given you any explicit orders. You're now powerful enough that I want you to get hold of an item for me. And once you do, I'm going to tell you what's up with the people who killed your clan. He directs him to a spot which is east of Barash and says, there's a dungeon there, and there's an item in that dungeon, and you, I suspect, as a dwarf, are the only one of my warlocks who is going to be able to actually retrieve that item. But I'm going to make one thing really fucking clear. And then he stands up and screams at him, under no fucking circumstances should this item or this dungeon ever be made aware of by your paladin friend. You keep him as far away as fucking possible from this thing. And he goes, and
Very businesslike.
Yes.
yeah. And Urus took away from that. I don't know whether he was using it as a way to make sure Douglas doesn't get involved, or if he misunderstood it. But he basically said, okay, duly noted, Paladin will explode if he gets involved. But, yeah, that was his dream.
I'll tell you what, I'll chime in with a bit of stupid trivia because HK51 in the chat's comments reminded me. I just love the fact that we decided that rocks fall is the dwarven language equivalent of shit happens.
Yeah, that was right. They started using that quite often. They'd be like, rocks fall.
That's so funny.
I love that. That's very funny.
That's some good world building right there.
I might have to use that in future again.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Right. So, okay, I guess we'll go back to Liliana then. First off, any questions so far? Anything unclear? Or would you like to know more about anything I've just said?
No, honestly, you've been very clear.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
okay.
keep this train rolling.
All right. So, oh, I'm so glad we're at Liliana. I fucking love Liliana.
He was great.
So, Liliana. So, what happened was, all of this nonsense had been happening in the city, and a lot of it had been centering around the Outcasters. The Outcasters had showed up, and in the space of 2 to 3 months, they had gotten involved with a devil that was burning down farms, a dragon that had nearly killed their paladin, manticores that had been disturbing their trade lines, found a paladin that was a high level and lost, got involved with some investigations for a murder that happened, done a ton of bounties, and caused all sorts of trouble, dealt with werewolves, caused collateral damage, and just generally been like this force of chaos, generally for the good, and also seems to be in the center of that weird termite thing that like it was a mess, right? Like at this point, Grosh and Nathan and the city in general had basically gone, so these Outcasters guys, we should probably address this. They one day get they're hanging out in the church with Douglas, and they get a very official summons from a royal guard from the center of the city. He rocks up with a detail of his own, purely to deliver a message, and basically reads out the Outcasters, consisting of the following names, and names everybody who's, everybody including Nextar, who they even went through the trouble of, because Nextar had decided not to list himself as an official Outcaster, and I think the group as a whole decided, all right, we're not going to list him as a direct member, but we're still going to list him as an affiliate, just so that basically you're our friend, shut up. So they basically made a point of all right, the Outcasters, who are these people, also the affiliate of the Outcasters Nextar, are hereby officially summoned to a hearing with Liliana, the Hand of the King. And they're like, oh. And then the herald makes a distinct point of, in nice terms, you are not allowed to deny this summons. You are coming. In a few days, you better be ready, and if you're not, we're coming to get you. And then he pisses off, and they're like, oh. So the day rolls around, and everybody has, most of everybody has gone through the effort of cleaning up and getting some nice high class clothing, because they actually have a surprising amount of money. I super need to draw art of the Outcasters in their fancy clothes. Anyway,
I remember Graham's defining RP moment was being very uncomfortable in a starched collar.
Yeah. And there was also the quote fun roleplay moment where so you remember how I mentioned that the Crimson Artist, the guy that they released from the prison for the criminally insane, how he was in the city now. When Jinx and Lucinda and other people were in the bathhouse, when they emerged from cleaning themselves up and were out in the foyer, Ven was there. The Crimson Artist was there, ready to greet them. And they were like, hey, do you need something, buddy? It was like the guild, because they weren't sure if the Thieves Guild that they were part of was the same Thieves Guild that was after them now. So they're like, are you okay, buddy? Should we be fuck, are you here to do something dodgy? And he was like, no, I'm just here because I want to talk to you guys. And they're like, okay. And then he's like, oh, Lucinda, I've got a gift for you. And she's like, okay. And he gives her the gift and goes, "This is just for you. I'd really appreciate if you used it." And she goes, "Okay." And then he hangs around for too long, saying nothing. And they're like, "We're gonna go." And he just watches them leave, and he's like, "Okay." And they open the gift, and lo and behold, it's a bunch of like moisturizing balms and stuff,
Oh.
and also a mechanically useful third one, because there's like an exfoliating one and another one which softens, which gives you nice soft skin, and there's a third one which is basically a balm which, if applied regularly to a scar, will actually help to fade that scar. Now, here's the thing. When a criminally insane murderer gives the cleric of your party skincare products,
Yeah.
that's a
You
little
should be a
unfair.
little afraid, especially
many-
especially when they have a fucking flaying spirit associated. I'm sure it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
How many
So-
red flags can I buy with a gold piece?
Well, none actually. This one's free.
Yay!
How far did I get with the premise of Bronimir the Flayer and Ven being bound to each other?
I don't think we ever put it together in the runtime of the campaign. I think that we actually the end of the campaign, when we just left off from Hornetdale to go somewhere else, we hadn't actually solved the case yet.
You had not, but in terms of the story time, I believe I've mentioned that the thieves made a point of permanently binding the
Yes.
specter of Bronimir the Flayer to Ven, and thus the Crimson Artist and the Flayer comes together to make the Skin Artist,
Yeah.
basically. The eventual crux of that entire case was going to be the unsurprising reveal that he was the murderer. He was the one going around and posing. Because here's the thing, right? The flayed people, it didn't match up completely with Bronimir the Flayer, because Bronimir the Flayer would just flay people and leave them in the gutter. But this guy was strung up as if on puppet strings on the
Yeah.
king's hand, as if it was some fucking political art piece.
To show off.
And-
yeah.
So that was the puzzle pieces I was giving to them of like, this is an artistic flaying. The Crimson Artist was around when the Flayer was killed. They have fused, they are the same. And I had so the reason that he had started targeting Lucinda, right? I think I mentioned in a previous story time that I had a house rule, which was if you ever got a critical hit against you, or if you ever went down to 0, you got a scar. Lucinda was one of the only party members who had managed to avoid being critically hit or being put down to 0 HP. So for
Wow.
all intents and purposes, her skin was flawless, which was why he was interested in her.
Oh.
Hmm.
One other thing, basically, that entire thread would have reached a head when I was eventually going to have the Crimson Artist kidnap Lucinda, and they were going to be on a timer to go save her before he flayed her and turned her into an art piece. I even had a plan for what the art piece was going to be, which was very gruesome. I don't. Do you want me to get into it?
How bad are we talking?
It's not like extra gory. It's just like, it's just spicy.
It's unpleasant because it's a named character, right? Like
Yeah.
that.
So-
yeah, go for it.
The art piece that he was planning with her was going to be, he was going to skin her, then stuff her skin to make it look like herself again,
Yeah.
and then she was going to place her flayed body in the Cathedral of the Sun, holding her own self naked.
Ah.
Like
As you do.
cradling her own body, but her body was flayed and she was cradling her own.
Yo,
Stuffed
that's
skin.
so fucked up.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, what did Lucinda's player do to you?
she had good skin. That's all she did. Insane murderer. Unfortunately, that's how these things happen. But yeah, that was going to be how that resolved. I did not want it to come to that. I was like, okay, that's going to be what happens if everything goes wrong. Please do not make me describe this to you guys. Anyway,
the threat was real.
I'm having a very split player personality perspective here of like, it's a shame that we didn't get to play out this storyline, but man, I sort of don't want to play out the storyline.
I was hoping it would just be a very tense sequence of trying to track down where he was keeping her, and occasionally cutting back to him having conversations with her as he basically builds up to turning her into an art piece. And I was hoping that it would eventually resolve in like maybe she gets a horrible injury by the time they get to her, but like that was the most I was hoping. I was hoping for a very heroic rescue, and there would basically be a final boss fight where they would fight. It would be Bronimir the Flayer is back, but he is possessing the Crimson Artist, and thus it is no longer boss fight Bronimir the Flayer. It is now boss fight the Skin Artist.
I love that.
And if they had for some reason decided to give this man the benefit of the doubt and try to somehow save him for some fucking reason, they would have found out that he was actually, a lot of his bloodlust was being contributed to him by Bronimir the Flayer, and if they had actually managed to dispossess him from then the Crimson Artist, he basically would have been like, thank you, I really didn't like what I was doing, because in my opinion, when I'm not altered by a crazy flame man, I thought these art pieces were really ugly, which is like not the right reason to not be okay with this. But like, hey,
you know,
I guess it's something. If they had, for some reason, decided to resolve it that way, it basically would have been a congratulations ? You now have a mass murderer to call upon as your friend whenever you like.
Oh my god, that's hysterical.
As the party representative here, I have a feeling we wouldn't have stopped stabbing after initiative ended.
No. I didn't expect as such. I was covering my bases. Anyway, massive tangent aside, back to the royal summons. Excuse-moi. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody's all dressed up in dice, and this big fancy royal carriage comes and gives them all a lift over to not just the upper district, but the royal district. And cue very nice descriptions of lavish places and fancy music. Sorry, I don't have any fancy music to play for this part. But it was like Baroque and very whatever. And they get led into a conference room, where waiting at a table facing all of their chairs is a panel of a half-elf man they don't recognize, who has very big Snape energy, Grosh, the guy that they've been turning in their bounties to, and Nathan, the asshole captain of the guard. And that's when they put together, oh, Nathan called this meeting, didn't he?
Can I take a side tangent to complain about Nathan?
Please do.
Man, Nathan, God, you did such a good job playing him, because we hated his guts. He was just the most grizzled town guardsman, and every time we ever did anything good for the city, he would call us in and complain to us about how we didn't do good enough, or we didn't do good the right way. And as such, we loathed this man. Like Savvy said, as soon as we got in that room, it was all just stink eyes on Nathan.
Pretty much. I believe you guys had like a self-imposed side goal of a side quest of like, because I think the same day that you got chewed out, you found out that Ashal had been, you found out that he had been promoted to Lancer, which meant that he was now in charge of 4 privates in the town guard.
Yeah.
And it was on that day, if I remember correctly, that some of you resolved to make Ashal look as good as possible as a guardsman so that he would eventually be the captain of the guard instead.
Yeah, we
Um,
loved Ashal. Ashal got shit done. Ashal dived in to fight the werewolves with us. He was an absolute team player.
Ashal was the definition of the platonic ideal of a good cop, basically. He was amazing.
Yes.
Anyway, Stink Eyes on Nathan, and they wait an awkwardly long 30 minutes in silence as they wait for the final seats to be filled. I've been waiting to read out the full title of Liliana Endevar. So the announcement comes in that she's here, and the herald goes, "Please stand and welcome Her Highness Liliana Endevar, Marshal of the Grand Army of King Hedronar, Representative of the King and High Warden of Hornet Dale, Chief Scientist of the Royal Laboratories, Decorated Vizier, and Royal Consultant in all scientific and magical matters."
Holy shit.
Oh crap.
Jesus.
In walks a very tall, austere-looking woman with very sharp, high cheekbones, very pointed features, but with a little bit of she walks in with this kind of very loose and slightly slightly too eccentric demeanor to herself. Think mad scientist demeanor, but barely reeled in. And she sits on her chair with her feet up on the table. And she's just smiling the whole time, totally fucking amused by this entire situation. And I believe she says something to the effect of oh, I do enjoy meeting new people. Come on, let's get this over with then. Nathan, why did you want us to call these people here? And she's basically she's purposely confirming that it is Nathan who called them there, because she purposely wants to stir shit to make things more interesting. And that was the vibe that was immediately put forward of, oh, this is probably the second most powerful woman in the kingdom, and she's fucking unhinged. Now, it's at this point that I'm going to mention that Liliana has two unofficial titles: the Conqueror of Aladel and the Scourge of Owlvale.
Oh! Is she the fucking person who made that horrible war crimes chemical?
She's the one who developed the unstoppable fire chemical.
Yeah, that tracks.
As you do.
She received the name the Scourge of Owlvale specifically not only because she developed it, but because she orchestrated the entire operation. Because it was I had this whole thing of the political landscape at the time of where the allegiances were, and the fact that she had to make her way upriver with an entire army and fucking barrels of this chemical in order to come in through the river where they wouldn't expect it and start spreading the flame from the riverbanks. She single-handedly said to the king, because she was just a scientist at the time, she wasn't important, she was a general, I think, and that was it. And she went she very brazenly went to King Hedronar. I was like, I have the fucking solution, please trust me, I can do all of this, just give me 75% of your army and I will win this war for you. And she fucking did. And all the while that she was heading this attack, as the flames were starting up, people noted that she was basically at the prow of a ship that was going down the river, laughing maniacally to the point of losing control of her bodily motor functions and almost collapsing to the floor as the flames were tearing through the armies of the elves.
Holy shit.
Now you see, we actually kind of liked this woman before you told me that.
To add to it, during this hearing, she started spouting a bunch of eugenic skull measuring bullshit, racist theory about why tieflings about why tieflings are predisposed to evil because the places where their horns grow out of their head puts pressure on their morality
Oh my
centers.
god.
So,
noted-
yeah, this woman needs to burn to death.
Yeah.
She
the
guest on
noted-
Fox News.
the noted funny reaction that came from that was that the Urist's player had a very notable reaction of yelling basically, "Are you fucking kidding me? She's a eugenicist. We are in a fantasy setting where people are literally descended from devils, and you think that you have to go so far as to point to skulls being the reason?" Like, he was pissed off that she was like reaching that far to go and make people hate tieflings, and he was like, "Are you shitting me? I hate this woman." But yeah, no, I pulled out all the stops to make it clear that she needed to fucking die. But during that meeting, they basically went through. It was a meeting to basically say, are the outcasters worth keeping in the city, or are we gonna exile them? And Grush vouched for them. Nathan did not, obviously. And they pulled in a bunch of, quote, impartial witnesses who were present at various shit that the outcasters had done. And all of them had basically said, yeah, like, obviously some shit went wrong, but for the most part, I noticed that the outcasters were not doing the damage, and they were trying to help people. And I think, like, there was a couple of people that, like, I think Jinx at one point, like, straight up dived in the way of a termite attack or something. Or pulled someone away from the termite attack, and one of those people came in to testify.
I remember having a discreet conversation with the Stinger mages, and they sent a quick delegation to make approving buzzing noises.
Yeah, that's right. 17 came by and was just like, "We approve of this group because they are associated with this man, and we'll be frank, we do not want them to be exiled, not because we think they're good, but because we have unfinished business with Graham, and he is a smart person, and we don't want you to get rid of him. Please and thank you, goodbye." Yeah, so end of the meeting, Liliana was like, "Hey, unnamed half-elf man who is my cousin, you have, like, this piece of real estate, right?" And he was like, "Yes, what are you getting at?" And she was like, "You've been struggling to shift it, right?" And he was like, turns nose up, "I guess I have been." "Ah, well, since you're too incompetent to sell it, why don't we just give it to the outcasters as like like skipping the process of giving them a favor coin and just trading it in straight away?" And he was like, I'm gonna blow past the insult, and I guess I'll sort it out for you, right? Then obviously Festival of Dreams, but they come away from that, and Liliana at that point had made very keen interest in the fact that a force for good in the city, as was generally agreed by people, contained a tiefling. And what's more, she was keen-eyed enough to spot that she was a tiefling born of the two major tiefling types in this kingdom.
Yeah.
And so she was like, eyes emoji, I must know more about this person. The fun thing, which I should mention, Lilith's mother is called Ayana. This person, who is a massive racist, is called Liliana, who was purposely a mashup of Lilith and Ayana's name just to fuck with her. So what was going to happen? I can't remember if I ended up actually doing this in the game, but what was going to happen is when they arrived back in the city from the final thing that ended up happening, Liliana was going to invite Lilith and specifically name Lilith. It was going to be an invitation of Liliana hereby invites Lilith and the Outcasters to an opera that's taking place in the Upper District, and they are going to be given prime seating for it. and it was going to be a whole thing of Liliana was basically going to call Lilith into her booth with her alone and talk with her. And I was keen on that because that was like think the Emperor talking to Anakin but not stupid. I was very keen on that. Anyway, they leave off and they're like, wow, fuck that bitch. She's running the kingdom. Fuck me.
He did give us a house and tell Nathan to piss off, though, so...
Yeah, you know.
So got that going for you.
Festival of Dreams, and this, after the Festival of Dreams, I will briefly mention, because it will come up later, Douglas at this point, during the Festival of Dreams, went on a date with Rana, who was a flower girl. She sold flowers in one of the high streets, and she Douglas came to know her because she was the only remaining werewolf from the werewolf attacks a month ago. The unfortunate thing was, they had never been made aware of the fact that she was even alive and infected, right? So for a whole month, she had been being kept in prison, and just purely for the fact that she was a werewolf and she was having a horrible time, right? It's not that the guard didn't want to help her, though, because the problem was, I mentioned with the whole Nibbon being a werewolf thing, that the reason that most werewolves don't end up getting cured is because after a month has passed, if you where you first discover you were infected, by that point it's too late to be healed, because Paladin Lay on Hands is no longer enough unless you're extremely high level to be able to purge the disease from your system, because it gets more and more difficult every day that passes. So Rana was in the unfortunate position where the only person that could cure her advanced werewolf, her advanced lycanthropy, was the only paladin who was out of the city because he was currently trying to stay under the radar of a green dragon.
Yeah.
So cue them getting back. They arrive at the temple, and the lizard pope goes, "Hey, thank God you're back. You can finally heal this girl." And he's like, "Oh,
Fuck yeah, Lizard Pope.
yeah, lizard pope." And Henry's like, "Oh fuck yeah, get me to it." And he goes, "Ooh, how long's it been? A month?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's bad. Do you think you can do it still?" And he goes, I don't know if even I, as a 16th level paladin, a 15th level paladin, I don't even know if I can do it. If I was maybe a little bit more powerful, I could do it." And so Douglas is like, "Oh, I'll come along. I can," and even though I'm lower level than you, I can contribute the rest of the healing hands to complete it, right? So they go along and they together heal Rana. And at this point, Douglas checks up on her flower shop later on to make sure that everything's going all right, because he's concerned that she's been, in prison for a month. And yeah, they start dating, with Douglas being a huge doofus with low wisdom who is learning how to interact with people as a partner. It was very cute and wholesome. And at one point, Urist went by them and stole one of their drinks. It was very fun. And I believe, because Graham would stop by the magic shop a lot, which was run by... Oh, I can actually show off Rana and Lara. If we go to NPCs...
Yes, I constantly got their names confused.
Yeah. So, where are they?
see.
Yeah, so we got NPC Lara and NPC Rana, and then there's just one that's called Rana Cordale Anaya.
Oh, okay.
So NPC Lara, which was a very crudely done sketch of the wizard girl in the magic shop.
Yeah, that was Graham's go-to magical supplies vendor.
And in the one labeled Rana Cordell Anayo, we have Rana at the top, who was a curly, red-haired, bubbly girl. She was very nice. And just generally thankful to not be a werewolf anymore. But yeah, the funny thing was, because I like to flesh out my characters, I had it so that Lara had taken note of Graham because he's not the kind of person you generally see in magic shops. He's a big, gruff dude in full plate, rusty armor. Like, he looks like some mercenary motherfucker, because he literally was. So she was like, huh, you're notable. And when he kept showing up, long story short, she was like totally interested in Graham, and at one point was gonna ask him out. But yeah, that was that, and that will come up later, specifically because I had some plans of the dragon, which concerned both of them. Anyway, the next thing that happened that was big, I ended a session with a very panicked man showing up to the cathedral where they were at. And he was out of breath. He'd clearly been running from something. And he said, "You're the Outcasters, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And at this point, the Outcasters had learned the name of the guy who was the leader of the Thieves Guild that wanted to kill them. His name was Darius. So Ian stumbles in and goes, "I need your help. I think Darius is trying to kill me." Red flags immediately.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I had also, I've been waiting to reveal this to my players.
Oh boy.
Leading up to this, I had been doing loads of stuff that was basically implying very heavily, the Thieves Guild are doing reconnaissance on you now, and basically people are going out, and they were each different party member was having weird encounters with people in town that were like suspiciously notable, in that there would always be something slightly off about the way that they would like sometimes literally run into people, right? The most aggressive one that happened was Lilith at one point when she was chilling out on the roof of their house, because she had the attic as her room. She was chilling out on the roof of her house, and she spotted on the roof opposite the street that there was a drow on top of the roof. And she was like, huh, that's weird. I should mention at this point that drow, in my setting, I was slowly phasing them into a new race to get rid of drow, because I didn't really like them that much. They were becoming wormborn, which was basically they came from caves, and so they had light sensitivity as you would with a drow, but their difference was because they were born of the worm god, they had tremor sense.
Oh, that's right.
And their whole thing was that they could live a long time, but the longer they lived, the more they would slowly morph into the other subterranean god's blood type, which was a giant centipede.
Ooh.
So
That
wormborn-
rules.
Personization, but for centipede.
Yeah, literally. So their whole thing is if they live long enough, they eventually become these horrible, hulking, multi-legged monstrosities. But yeah, no. So there was this short wormborn lady on the opposite roof, and she's like, huh, why is she, like, she's looking at me. This screams bad. And she smirks and throws a dagger at Lilith.
Oh,
And
that escalated.
Yeah.
Lilith, this was what I loved about the interaction. It would have hit Lilith. I would have rolled high enough to actually land a dagger on her, but Lilith was a spellcasting thief. thief, which meant that she had access to the spell Shield.
Oh
for-
yeah, Shield's so good.
For those who don't know, Shield is a reaction, which means you can do it instantly, and it either completely negates an instance of magic missile that's targeting you, or rather, and adds +5 to your armor class. So Lilith goes, I shield just immediately,
Yeah.
and it was enough to block it. So the Drow sees this interaction and suddenly gets this big smile on her face of seemingly being really pleased about the fact that she managed to block the dagger. And she just drops off the back of the building, and Lilith goes to chase after her, and she's gone. Jinx, at one point in town, has a notable encounter where she rounds a corner, and she full face collides with a Goliath man. Really tall, like 8 foot tall, beefy motherfucker. Really strong. And I have them roll off on strength to see which one of them ends up falling over and which one of them ends up standing up.
Yeah.
Jinx was surprised to find that she lost that strength contest because she has like a +6 to her strength
Yeah.
or something. And she was just like, whoa, this guy must be fucking beefy if I just lost a strength check to him. So she gets put on her ass. And he said he does the whole thing of like, oh, like really sorry, didn't see you there. Helps pick her up and is very pleasant and it's just like, oh, hey, can I like do anything for you? Can I do anything for you? Like, can I like just give you like quick gold to make up for it? And she's like, no, it's fine. And he's like, oh yeah, in which case have a good day. Walks off, and I have Jinx make a perception check, and she succeeds. And she hears him whisper under his breath, "Finally."
What the fuck?
And so she goes, "I don't trust like that." And she actually makes a couple of surprisingly good stealth checks and follows him. And has a very weird experience where all she witnesses him doing is stopping in the middle of the street, seemingly making a decision, smiling to himself, going to a local bakery, and then buying himself a large slice of cake. So, the other thing happening in the town that Lilith had picked up on by doing some reconnaissance around the slums, half in an effort to figure out what's going on with the Thieves Guild and half to keep track of what's going on with the orphans, finds out that a new hook has come along that might be connected to the orphans. There has been more and more occasions where strange black spheres of magical darkness are appearing in the middle of the slums during the daytime. And anyone who enters will either come out the other side unscathed or disappear never to be seen again. And it's a coin toss as to which one it is. So she's like, okay, we're going to investigate that. Weird that started happening just as I got told that the Thieves Guild is after us. So, here's the reveal I've been fucking waiting for.
Ooh.
So, where are you? Yes. Rob, do you want to tell me any theories that you had on Darius?
Oh, Darius. I don't think we ever found that much out about him. I mean, we assumed that Darius was a fake name and it was going to be like a second or third order level of deception.
You are partially right. The thing that you may not have anticipated, could everybody please look at the file named Darius All?
Oh. Darius All.
Darius was not one person, he was 4.
Whoa.
You gotta be. So there was a fourth order deception in there.
Yep. You were going up against a high level party of people who collectively came together and became a very rare instance of a thieves guild run by democratic decision. And what's more, it worked so well that they didn't need odd numbers for tiebreakers. They were so in agreement with each other on so many things that they could just have 4 of them and there would never be two on two ties for decisions.
Oh my god, that's beautiful.
That's so
Uh,
cool.
That's awesome.
The guy, the third guy there, I didn't finish drawing him on this picture, but if you look to Darius Dice Master, you can see in the top right the design that I went for with him.
Oh.
Oh.
One thing that the astute people may have noticed, if you go to back to Darius All,
Yeah.
is that all of them have their left eye removed or replaced in some way.
Ooh.
They, as part of the reason they worked so well together, is that when they made this pact to work together, as a show of dedication and in order to have a one-up on the competition, they collectively cut out their left eyes together and replaced them with magical artifacts which they had created, which allowed them to telepathically communicate at any distance at any time so that they could make decisions without ever having to meet in person.
Whoa, okay.
Right.
That's dedication.
The so let me break down what's going on with these 4. The guy on the left is the Goliath that Jinx ran into. She unwittingly ran into Darius that day.
Yeah.
Similarly, the drow on the right, the Wormborn on the right, is the person that Lilith encountered on the room. Lilith also encountered Darius that day. And additionally, the black spots of darkness in the slums were being caused by the guy to the right of the second guy to the right, who was a progenitor vampire. And so I had some very specific lore. I won't get fully into it, but by virtue of a previous game that I had run, vampires in my setting had originated from a different magical being known as an Oberyfo, which is based on a real-life folklore from Africa, which is they are these spirits, which basically spirits or monsters which feed on and destroy crops, and also specifically eat children. They're very scary. I had them in my setting, and they originated in the desert. And the whole thing was that back ages and ages and ages ago, in pre-humanity and pre-civilization humanity, the various nomads that lived in the desert and had problems with Oberyfo destroying their crops and eating their children, the clerics and paladins of the sun of the day implored their gods to give them a solution to wipe out the Oberyfo, and Anshar responded in kind and gave them a solution. He said, "Incant this ritual, incant this curse, and they will burst into flame the moment you do it. The only condition to this is that you must make absolutely certain to do it during the daytime when I am at my strongest, so that I may strike them down." What Anshar did not tell them was not that he basically said, "Oh, it won't work during the night. Don't do it during the night." Oh, have we lost someone? We've lost Jane.
Yeah, he
Yeah, yeah.
needed to pop out.
I'll carry on. What he didn't tell them was it's not that it doesn't work during the night. It's that it's not actually a destroy spell. It's a curse to turn Oberyfo into vampires. So the idea was he had the best intentions, because he was like, I can't. He was just like, look, just turn them into vampires, and so long as you do it during the daytime, the curse will make it so that he burst into flame and die, right? Because that's what the curse does. Unfortunately, as things tend to go, people get desperate and they go, "We don't have a choice. We have to do this during the night." Cue an Oberyfo being like, "What? What the fuck happened? I'm not dead." And they go, oh fuck, and then they slaughter all of them and escape, and that's how vampires happened in the world.
That's really interesting.
Anyway, this guy was one of the original Obayifo who got caught by one of those curses and ended up being a progenitor vampire for all of the rest of vampires. He, as a result, maintained his taste for children, and that's why tiefling children had been going missing in the lower districts, because he basically had been rolling into the Thieves Guild, because you remember I said that they were trying to now slowly phase out the use of tieflings, which was why they wanted to kill Halfhorn.
Yeah.
They were basically doing two birds with one stone of like, hey, Sefu, can you just curb your appetite towards specifically tiefling kids now so that we can start like getting in the good graces of the king again? And he was like, yeah, sure, fine by me. It was all that makes no difference, right? Unfortunately, as a vampire, he would sometimes get caught out and he would end up in the sunlight. So his eye had a special ability to cast darkness, sphere of darkness around him automatically whenever daytime arrived. All of the...
So that's where the spheres of darkness were coming from.
Yeah, the spheres of darkness were... He was in them.
Ah.
You son of a bitch.
Each of the eyes had a specific enchantment unique to each of them, which you would have found out once you fought them. Back to Ian. The party correctly surmised and sussed me out that Ian was meant to be bait, and that he was working for Darius and trying to lure them out so that they could get killed. I did something that I try to avoid in general. I don't generally like to change my plans if the players call me out and know what I'm doing. I am generally pretty good about not changing my plans and just rewarding them when they guess things correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
But this was the one time when I was like, no, I've planned too much. I'm just going to change things to be different. So they completely sussed me out. He was 100% meant to be working with Darius to begin with. But I changed it around to work, and I made it so that he did work for Darius, specifically the Dice Master, and he had recently racked up enough debt in his casinos that the Dice Master had two options: either use him as a lapdog to get everything dirty done because he can't say no because he's in debt, or get rid of him. So Darius decided to go, well, two birds with one stone. I'm going to leak to him. I'm going to leak to Ian the idea through a quote anonymous source who has his best interests in mind, that the outcasters are probably the type of people who would have the best chance at helping someone who got on Darius's bad side. Oh, what a coincidence, Ian. Darius has decided he doesn't want to deal with your shit anymore. You better start running or else we're going to kill you, right? So Darius had basically manufactured, he was basically manufacturing, hey, one, I know that Ian has a stash of money, and he's purposely not giving it to me because I know that he wants to escape the city one day when I eventually exile him from the guild. I know where that stash is because I'm Darius and I plan for this kind of thing. And Ian is a bit of a naive idiot. So, all I have to do is let him know the Outcasters exist, exile him, be a little slow to the uptake on the assassination, then just wait for him to go to the Outcasters, ask them for help to get to his stash safely, and set up an ambush around the stash and kill all of them. And lo and behold, Ian was dumb and obviously DM Fiat of just that goes to plan because I need it to.
Yeah.
So I changed it from him being a spy because I was like, if they start rolling insight checks, I'm not going to get very far because of my DM curse.
Yeah.
So I had to make it so that he genuinely did think he was in danger, and that was the change. And I'm glad I did that because honestly, it was more compelling. So they lead. So Ian leads them to where he has his secret stash of money. And you know what? Let's change up the music, just because this is probably going to be the predominant theme coming up now. Would you please put on copy paste Cleric Beasts theme?
Ah, I see.
The theme of demons on roofs.
Yeah, we have now reached the demon arc. So, they reach the alleyway, and Ian basically, Ian and the group, they basically say, okay, could some of you stay guard by the entrance to the alleyway while I take Graham and someone, I think it was Graham and Lilith with me, to just keep me protected directly while I go and access my stash behind this building.
I remember this bit. I think it was just Graham, but Lilith stalked on the roof.
That's right, yes. Lilith was stalking on the roof, and it was just Graham. This was... God, I was really proud of myself for how I handled this encounter. So this is where the ambush was set, right? But the main thing was, I wanted to trap everyone in the alleyway. So I did it. So I was like, I need to figure out a reason why I would get, if not all of them, at least most of the outcasters to rush into the alleyway to their aid, right? But similarly, Ian, as naive as he is, he knows good enough to check for traps on his stash, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, how would Darius do something to make it seem like Graham and Ian are in danger, so that the outcasters will run in, but without making it obvious that there is a trap there that might get sussed out and thus tip everyone off. So Graham goes back there with him. Everyone is tense and waiting on the lookout. I describe Ian lifting a trick slab, a trick cobblestone slab behind this building, where the stash is, and I say, he lifts the stone, and as he does so, you hear a cacophonous explosion. We're gonna cut away from you, Graham. What do the outcasters do? And then Graham and Dusty just said, like, wait, what happened?
Yep.
Can I get a reflex save?
Yep. I was freaking out at that point. I was expecting us to go back and like roll 20d20 explosion damage.
So, all goes according to plan. You hear an explosion, most of them run in, obviously, right? They've played right into my hands. They round the corner, Graham and Ian are fine. Because all that happened is that Darius had sent a spellcaster to place a delayed spell on the slab, which had the conditions: when this slab is lifted upwards, play ghost sound and thaumaturgy several times to make it sound like an awful explosion has happened.
Oh.
And yeah, so ambush begins. There is assassins on the roof, and like everyone's like, "Oh fuck, assassins! We got to deal with them." And the fights, all going well. Blah blah blah. And this is the part where I introduce the first backstory villain of the game.
Ooh.
The very first backstory unfortunately the only one we ever got to get into was Nextar's backstory.
Ooh.
And it didn't show at the time, but you'll see why it was his backstory in a bit. They hear, coming from inside of one of the building, which the assassins had actually commandeered as their hideout, they hear, "Hey, get on with it already." And then they hear someone cackling to themselves and going, "These things take time." Then they hear the sound of some kind of awful injury being inflicted on somebody. And out of the roof pops two full-fledged demons.
Oh.
And they're not like lesser demons. They're not like greater demons, but they're like full-blood demons.
Ah.
I believe the way I described them was one of them had a horrifically long tail with like a scythe blade on the end of it, and the other one had 2 extra arms with massive blade-like claws. But both of them had these mouths that separated into 3 pieces and had an eye on each piece.
Oh.
And they had this mass of bladed tentacles that they could vomit up from their mouths to do extra slashing damage. They were horrific. Also, fun fact, I miscalculated the I miscalculated the challenge rating, and that encounter should have actually been a deadly encounter. That encounter shouldn't have been survivable.
Ah.
As
But
you do.
yeah, I fucked up. But it all turned out, and we'll see why. If we go quickly to the image, which is labeled Devil and Demon Eyes.
Ooh, yeah.
I may have showed it off before. I'm not sure. But I basically had lore in my universe for, like, there was different ways to tell devils and demons apart. I was very particular about it. And I had this whole thing about what different eye capabilities each devils and demons had. So the type of eyes that these demons had were the ones on the bottom, which were like the rippling pupils. Their whole thing is that they could see body heat through walls, were impossible to blind, and sometimes demons even have tremor sense.
Oh.
But yeah, demons were notable from devils because demons are not how they are in regular D&D. They are outright berserk feral animals, and even the ones which can speak often choose not to because they are just so single-mindedly hell-bent on destruction and massacre. It's very much like accepted of, like, how do I put it? When you hear about devils, when you hear about a terrible event that has been manufactured by devils, it's normally awful, and it's normally it's normally like you don't want it to happen. It's traumatic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's generally agreed if you're dealing with a devil, that's just it, right? You can deal with a devil. If you offer the right things, you can avoid being killed. Demons are widely regarded as, if you summon a demon into the world, you have to be insane to the point of just like suicidal, reckless abandon for not just yourself but the world, because demons are like, their main threatening point is that they don't stop. You have to kill them or they will just cause they will cause a massacre unimaginable by even human standards, and there is no way to stop them beyond bringing in the heaviest hitters in your kingdom or town and doing your best.
Holy shit.
I think
So
we once compared it to being locked in a room with a mafia boss and being locked in a room with a rabid bear.
Yeah. And it was to a point where I believe I'd been dropping hints that something that had been being kept on the down low, which I think that was it. Liliana alluded to something on purpose because she's fucking crazy and because she wants to see like how the outcasters deal with this shit. She had revealed a kingdom secret, which was there have been cities there have been small towns in the kingdom of Hedronar that have been being wiped off the map. Just massacred. Blood everywhere. It's awful. And it's been being kept on the down low to prevent kingdom-wide panic that there is some force of evil going around, literally destroying entire communities. So the voice they heard inside of that building was the person responsible for causing those town-wide
yeah.
massacres, because he was a demon summoner, and his name was Erlag. Let me see. Yeah, so this one is just named Erlag. If you could bring him up.
What's it start with? Oh,
Just Erlag. You. Yeah.
There you go.
Erlag is just completely insane. He has delusions of one day becoming a demon himself. And he had arrived at Hornet Dale, and asked the Thieves Guild for sanctuary to basically he had now destroyed enough communities that he was like, this is it, I'm doing my next big move. Fuck taking out a medium town, I'm taking out Hornet Dale, the second biggest town in the fucking kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So he was like, hey, Thieves Guild, I want to be in the city, get me there, I'll do whatever you want. And normally the Thieves Guild would be like, we're not fucking accepting a goddamn demon summoner. But in this occasion, they were like, okay, we're fairly confident that, at the very least, all 4 of the Darius can take this guy down if they need to. And they'll probably do that. But, you know what demons would be very good at? Killing adventurers who are known to be very powerful. Yeah, Oleg, come in. You can just do this one favor for us, and we'll let you do whatever you like. You'll have free reign of the city, dude. He's insane enough that he doesn't pick up on the fact that that's super suspicious. Their plan was, once Erlag manages to kill the Outcasters, the Thieves Guild was going to come out in full force and fucking just wipe him off the map, because, like, they're not dumb. They don't want to fucking be responsible for, like, you know, even if Erlag can't destroy Hornet Dale, he's going to cause enough of a problem that all of the good grace that they have with the shadow agents of the kingdom are just going to be flushed down the fucking drain. So they were like, yep, you come in, kill these guys, and then we're going to kill you, but you don't know that last part. Erlag summons these 2 demons. Holy shit. Like, I think 3 people went down during that fight, because it just shouldn't have fucking happened. There shouldn't have been 2 of them.
Yeah.
It was hard as nails. We had to properly, like, micromanage our combat actions to get out of that.
Straight up, the thing that saved them was Nextar.
Nextar grappled one of them for like 5 rounds.
Yeah. Nextar raged. And here's the thing. This was when I started cluing him into the fact that his backstory had something to do with demons.
Yeah.
Because when the demons showed up, I described it as, your blood feels like it's on fire and your heart is beating at a rate that you've never felt before in your life. And then I forced him into a rage. And I also made it so that he was not... he had no time limit on the rage, and the rage would never drop, even if he didn't attack or get attacked on a turn. And he got a +1 to his normal rage bonuses. So using advantage and his +1s, he single-handedly grappled one of the demons that was designed to fucking... that should have been a threat for the entire party. He kept it locked up in combat with himself for 5 whole fucking rounds. He was the only person who could do it, because I think as a large creature, this thing was getting advantage versus medium creatures on grapples. So it leveled out because it was the demon's advantage versus his advantage, which meant that...
so it evened out. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was straight up high-key MVP of the match, because he let the rest of the party deal with the mini-boss, which should have just been on its own by itself. Cue the demon flaying alive one of the assassins, because they don't have an allegiance. And the rest of the party managed to take down one of the other demon that's in the alleyway, by virtue of the 5th edition phenomenon of a paladin critting and deciding to use a full level smite.
Yeah. You've died.
And add on top of that, he double critted.
Okay.
I think that was the single turn damage record for the entire campaign.
Yeah.
If I'm not
That'll do it.
mistaken, I think he did 88 damage in one round.
At like level 8.
No, I think you were like level 6 at this point. You only ever reached level 7.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, you were level 6 and did 88, and he did 88 damage to a demon. I described that as he had been running Green Flame his Green Flame aura the entire time that he was in that fight.
Yeah.
For that one attack, he flipped into his Brilliant Sun aura, and his sword, his god, basically, I fluffed it as, and Shaw went, "Oh, you're in a bad situation, man." Here's just have a double crit smite, dude. And his blade became as bright as the sun for 5 seconds, and he dragged it through the demon, and it turned the top half of it into ash. There were people in the houses seeing this happen, and they saw him do this fucking insane, like, smite of God. The second devil on the roof, at this point, managed to break away from Nextar, landed on the second demon's body, ate it, and consumed its power. And he became a demon who had the 4 arms and the tail. And that was my way to escalate the fight when I really didn't need to. Point is, they survived the fight, barely, and they ran the fuck away, and they got Ian out of town. They got him with the secondary, the other guild, which Cordale and the Crimson Artist were part of. They were notable for being part of they were the Splinter Guild, which had broken away from the major guild, which was now trying to get in the good graces of the kingdom's underbelly. And they were like, "No, fuck you. Why would we get rid of the tieflings? Like, they're good people and they do good stuff for us. Go fuck yourselves. We're like going to strike out on our own, right?" So a lot of resources got diverted from Darius as a result, which was why Ian could escape in the first place. So he handed off the money. This mysterious guy magically sent him through a hallway that would take him off to another dimension that would eventually drop him off in another city. And he changed his identity and he escaped. At this point, they are like, "Oh, this is bad. A demon summoner is after us." And Nextar is like, "Why did my blood feel like it was at home when I was in the presence of demons?" So they decide to hide out in the cathedral while they are doing the last watch with Nathan. And it's at that point that, because Erlag escaped that encounter. He went off to go do his thing, and he escaped into the sewers, and as a result, the Thieves Guild went, "Okay, don't like that you killed some of our guys with your demons. Here's a new plan. You just do your own thing, Erlag. All we'll do is send out a unit to surround the cathedral, lock the doors, and make sure that there is no other option except for them to what's it called? To like, encounter you, basically."
Yeah.
During this time, I think there was a brief moment where the party went back to check on the situation with the demon corpse in the middle of that alleyway. Naturally, there was a giant crowd of people there because a fucking demon attack happened.
Yeah.
And there was loads of guards trying to, be like, "Oh, back up, back up, back up," all of that kind of thing. And there was the very funny thing that came around. Graham and Urist were the ones who went to make sure that everything was okay while everyone else looked after Ian at the cathedral. And while they were there, they were like, "Oh, okay. Well, we're not going to be able to find out anything. This place is crawling with civilians and guards. We can't pick up any info that we need from here." As they're walking away, some of the people recognize that they're from the Outcasters and start like being like, "Hey, it was you guys. We heard from some of the people in the houses that it was you." And they start like applauding and being like, "Yeah, Demon Slayers," all of that kind of thing. And then someone in the back goes, "Where's Brightblade?" And Graham and Urist, who both collectively agreed that Douglas was a complete dumbass who should not have his ego inflated at any point. They just go, "Oh no, he has a title that the people gave him," and they looked at him, they looked at each other, and they just went, "We must agree to never tell him."
And we did not.
So the night comes around. They realize they're surrounded. They're like, "Oh fuck!" The guys in front of the cathedral, they spot Erlag because I believe they had detect invisibility, which meant they actually managed to sense him trying to sneak up on them.
Yeah,
So
we
Urist,
pulled out all the stops for surveillance when we were in that cathedral.
and Urist made the move of seeing him, and Erlag was like, "Okay, bolting. I'm gonna leave." And Urist was like, "No, you don't, you motherfucker. We're gonna and so basically all of the Outcasters went, "All right, we are gonna we're not fighting on ambush grounds this time. It's clear that the thieves aren't doing anything except setting up this ambush." They didn't count on the fact that Erlag is a chaotic ass, that he wouldn't actually follow through with the plan and would just bolt immediately. We have a chance here. We're following him, and we are taking him the fuck out while we can do it on our terms. They follow him into the sewer, and we can transition to map. Where is it? Map sewers 1 and 2.
Sewers 1 and 2. There we go.
If I remember correctly, I think I actually managed to land a crit chromatic orb on his back before he dived into the sewers as well, which sort of set us off on a confidence booster.
You did. So, at this point, they all land in the sewers. It's all very tense because they're basically trying to follow him by hearing him with the echo, right? Let me see. I think... Yeah, so I'm gonna send you a time-stamped video, which has some sound effects that I was using for this part. Oh no, I want it with timestamp. Please start at 140. Perfect. So for anyone curious, this is sound effects of Rek'Sai, who is a champion from League of Legends. So here we go. So this horrible demonic clicking was something they were hearing throughout the sewers.
Oh.
I would periodically play this, just to freak them out, basically. You don't have to keep playing that, but that
sound effect's so good.
It's very good.
It was super scary.
So I wanna send you a piece of music, but it's from Evangelion, and I don't necessarily know.
Anime is scary. Anime scares me.
But it's more. I don't know if it will get picked up on DMCA.
No,
so
that's what I'm afraid of with Twitch.
For anyone curious, a song that I very much treated as a theme for these next parts. I didn't play it at the time because I had plans for this song. But anyone interested, it's from Evangelion 3.33, and it's called Scarred and Battled. I'm going to play it for myself because obviously, that's not on stream. Feel free to take your choice, Jay, of whether you want to keep playing Cleric Beast or another Bloodborne soundtrack, which is maybe not quite as intense.
Ooh,
I don't mind. I will link this song in the Discord just for everyone who, isn't streaming, Right. So, they're in the sewers, and that sound effect keeps happening, right? They go down one of the that little diagonal alleyway down to the right, and they find a magical item down there, which isn't particularly relevant. But as they get to the main sewage duct in the center, they are attacked by some hastily summoned minor devils. Not devils, demons. And this is the point where I should mention one of the caveats of demon summoning in this world, which isn't surprising, but worth mentioning. Demon summoning can only ever be done with a demonstration of the type of destruction that you want to inflict. So the summoning, if you want to summon a demon of massacres, you need to kill a large group of people for the ritual. The demons that they fought to begin with, he had summoned by sacrificing some civilians, and also killing the assassin that was in the room with him, which basically ended up summoning, if I remember correctly, I think I titled them like Demons of Carnage, because the idea was that that specific ritual was a demonstration of wanton killing without regard for allegiance. So these ones in the sewers, I believe they were demons of fetid disease and that kind of thing, because he was in the sewers, and I think he was basically quickly stomping rats as he was going along. Could people hear me, by the way?
Yes. Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
I get paranoid. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
So he was stomping rats and summoning like a bunch of little smaller demons. And I think I was using a specific template, which meant that they had this really nasty poison injector, which if it landed on you, it would reduce your maximum hit points. It was nasty. They killed them, and notably, there was a very fun moment. Because one of them had missed with their injector, there was a bunch of this venom, this oozing thick venom on the floor. And Lilith decided, we're about to fight some guy who doesn't fuck around. I'm going to stop and pick up this venom and store it for later. And I asked the question, how do you go about picking it up? And both Dusty and Lilith, in tandem, go gingerly. So yeah, that was a good bit.
We
of
would
editing.
wish we had ye olde rubber gloves for that one.
But yeah, they scoop it up and they get moving, and they go to the next map, Sewer 2. This was where the source of that clicking was coming from. Nextar, with his blood burning once again, was hearing this voice in his head, which was similar to his Berserk form's voice, but still distinctly other. And so he was like, what the fuck is going on? And he storms ahead. He's raging this whole time, and he's really acting the part. He was really good at roleplay. So he runs ahead, and at this point the party's like, okay, because he's not stopping to fight these demons. They're like, okay, this is no longer a matter of just finding this Null. We now need to go and get Nextar before he gets himself killed. They go after him, and they get held up by a thieves' stash that they managed to spot, which was where Erlag was hiding out in order to make this ambush on the church. And they get held up because they're looking to find info and if there's anything they can use against Erlag. Nextar is still ahead of them, and he goes down to where, can you see where the giant D is circled?
Yes.
If you direct your attention to the red writing that starts with the words, "Dad is Nelfeshni."
Oh, I see.
There was an Otiug here to act as a buffer for what was about to go down. So Erlag, at this point, is standing on top of this giant wrought steel box, completely sealed off. There is no bars, nothing. It is a sealed steel box which has been magically enchanted so that there is no opening. You have to enchant a word for it to shear the steel and create an opening. And inside of it, Nextar can feel this voice reaching out to him, and just it is like he can feel that its heart is beating in time with his, and Erlag is on top of it, and he's like basically like fucking going crazy, and he's just like, I was asking myself for so long what was wrong, what I needed, what was missing. I couldn't find out what it was. I was listening to the voices, and maybe that's why I'm here. Maybe that's why I got led to Hornet Dale. It's you, Nextar. And at this point, like he hasn't told him his name, and he says, "Hey, it's you, Nextar." And he's like, "How do you know my name?" And he goes, "He told me. He told me your name." And I should note at this point, Erlag was particularly weird because it came to light that his left arm isn't null arm. It seems to be a different race sewed onto his own shoulder, and it's scaled with the same colored it's scaled with the same colored patterns as Nextar's. So what had transpired was that Nextar's dad, who went berserk when when Nextar was hatching, the reason he went berserk was because he had been guided by two devils to create an experimental potion, an experimental like Jekyll-style potion that would supposedly cure this disease that his dad was trying desperately to deal with in their hometown of Julival. And he got to a point where he was so frustrated and angry that he couldn't figure out how to save these people, that he resorted to accepting the help of two devils. And they said, "Here is the cure. Here is what you need. In exchange, we want you to develop this." And they didn't tell him what it was. They just said, "We need you to test these potions and test these formulas and see what the result is." And he did. And what it turned out to be is that these devils were trying to develop a way to forcefully transform mortals into demons that could then be controlled. And he drank the potion, and that's why he went berserk. Is that he was going through the process of literally of demonification, and thus devoured his own clutch of eggs. And during that time, one of his teeth cut Nextar, and when the town guard was stabbing him to death and trying to grab Nextar out of his mouth, naturally he got coated in his own father's blood, which was now demonic, and thus Nextar grew up being demonically possessed by the spirit of his own father.
That shreds.
Jesus.
So the town guard kill the dad, and but not before he manages to get away, and he bleeds out. He starts bleeding out nearby a riverbank, and because he suddenly has this supernatural ability to he can just jump this, like, it's basically like Will, fucking what's his name, your big red badass
Creed.
Creed. He has Creed jump at all time. And so anything in his path will just fucking turn to red mist, basically. He manages to barely get away, but the guarding basically like see him and they're just like, he's lost so much blood, there's no way he isn't dead, right? And they leave him to wash down the river, concluding he's dead, he's dealt with. We're a small town, we don't have time to possibly deal with this. He washes up on the riverbank dead, way down in a different part of the kingdom, and just so happens to be where Erlag has recently been trying to summon some demons to destroy some of these towns, right? And he goes, "Holy fuck! I must have just been gifted by the gods, because I was, he has all these spells to like detect demons and shit, and he runs across this perfectly good demon corpse, just handed to him in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, oh my god, it's pre-dead as well. This is the perfect opportunity for me to start my fucking transition into a demon, right? So he grabs his tools and cuts off his arm and starts grafting it onto his own shoulder. Like, yes, the demon blood is flowing through me, and in no time at all, I will become a true demon. While he's doing this, he inadvertently, by pumping his own living blood into the arm that he's just sewn onto himself, manages to reinvigorate the separated body of this demon, who wakes up, grabs the nearest arm that's available, which is the Knoll's, sticks it onto his shoulder, and because axolotl lizardmen have fast healing, and his fast healing has been accelerated by being a demon, it just accepts the arm. And so they just do an arm switcheroo. But the added thing that this does, the devils that put the dad up to this, that put Kalish up to this, had concluded the experiment as a failure. But Erlag had inadvertently taken advantage of the pre-built-in susceptibility to being controlled by mixing blood with him. And so he had accidentally taken advantage of this thing that the devils had tried to put into the demons, and now they were telepathically connected and were becoming one. They were becoming the same person, and he could command him perfectly. The player for Nextar later admitted to me, I had a feeling you were going to bring back my dad. I had no way to predict that you were going to make it so that someone else was the villain.
I love that.
So, surprise, surprise, his dad is all boxed up, and he's the one who's been causing these horrible massacres on a civilization scale, and he unleashes him, and cue a scene of Nextar. As the box opens, you realize two things simultaneously. It is you and your dad in that box. Two, you cannot fight him. He is too powerful. Because you can feel what he's capable of. And for the first time, he feels fear in his berserk form. The dad roars, and I have everyone make a charisma saving throw, and the only person who fails it is the big dick ego paladin, Douglas. And he starts freaking out because this is the first time he's ever felt anything in the world that he has felt was totally beyond him. And as he's freaking out, this is the piece of roleplay I wish I could have listened to. But during this time, when I'm dealing with what Nextar's doing, Douglas is freaking out at the sense of this aura, and Urist, the character who, by all means, hates Douglas the most, and also has reason from directly from his patron to not get involved with Douglas. He grabs him by the shoulders, and he basically goes, "We are about to fight a demon, possibly, and our paladin is shitting his pants. I have to do something to get him in the game." He grabs his shoulders and goes, "You have to understand that you are capable of doing this, and you are going to do this because we found out something today. You're a hero of the people. They're calling you Brightblade out there. You need to step up and become the hero that you've just proven yourself to be. So get it the fuck together, Douglas. The fuck together."
Jesus.
Tactical ego trip engaged.
Then there was basically a chase scene of them running out. They go back to the first map, and there is a wrought steel grate that the father manages to just blow through with his jump in one swift movement, even impaling himself with full-on iron bars, pulling them out, and then healing instantly. I pointed that out very pointedly. He heals nearly instantly. And he's now in front of them because he took a shortcut. They one by one have to make their checks to get past him. And one of the things that Urista does is he bips himself and Lucinda with an invisibility spell in order to get away from them. Everyone is making a mad break for the ladder. And they're varying speed. Some of them are faster than others. Some of them are doing better than others. And most of them are nearly at the ladder, except for Urist and Lucinda, who are lagging behind, partially because they're looking for a good spot to jump, and partially because they're kind of failing their jumps to get across the river. And, being invisible, if you jump into the river, he's just going to zero in on you, right? They get to the other side, and this is where I say, Lucinda and Urist, you're the nearest to him, right? And Urist goes, "Yeah, but we're invisible." And they go, "He grabs you." And they're like, "What?" And I go, "He can see you." And I basically had to reveal my hand a little bit here because I went, because he has heat vision and tremor sense.
Oh.
So he could see them perfectly, because that's what I
Never a
was
good
teasing.
combination.
That's what I was teasing at with the echolocation. He made those sounds to see where people were. And so he grabs both of them. Thing about Urist is the biggest bag of hit points in the group. He grabs them and slams them both into the ground as he himself jumps over the gap. Urist, it's like a quarter of his HP. It's nothing big. And I go, "All right, Lucinda, take 21 damage." And Lucinda, God bless her, she was such a shy, I told you, she was a shy person. She wasn't particularly loud or anything. So I say, "Take 21 damage." And then she just very, very quietly goes, "I'm down."
Oh.
And I just look at her and I go, "You're down? You haven't taken any hits yet?" And she goes, "Yeah, I only have 20 HP.
Oh.
And I was like, "No, what happened?" And she was just like, I've been rolling really poorly on all of my level ups." And I was just like, "No!" And so she went down in one swoop with it. And so the reason I've been so particular about describing this build up, this is out and out my absolute favorite moment as a GM in history ever. I'm getting literally shivers thinking about describing this to you.
Ooh.
She says, "I'm down." I go completely fucking white in the face, and I'm shocked, right? Because in my head, she's about to die.
Yeah.
Like I outright was ready to kill her, and I was like, "This is going to be the first party death," because it was this whole thing of like, I was confident that with his attacks that he would be scary, but not so lethal that he could drop someone in like 1 or 2 rounds, right?
Yeah.
The main thing was that he was impossible to kill because of his healing factor, which is why people had to run away. The revelation that her hit points were like 20 something. I suddenly had the realization of, she's in negatives. I can just do that damage again in one attack. If she reaches her hit points in negatives, she just dies. She's dead. It is literally All that has to happen is for her to remain in his hand next round, and for him to make the decision to crush her body and bite her head off. And because that's exactly what he's gonna do. And I was like, this is it. Q, upon her saying, I'm down, the entire party explodes with them screaming varying things of I turn around and do X. I catch none of it. And I'm like completely taken aback. I put my hands up and I have to be, and I'm like, there is now the hugest smile on my face, and I'm just like, holy fuck. And I'm like, guys, calm down. One at a time, let's go through this.
Yeah.
And each and every single one of them, I went through all of them, and they each described to me individually what they were all screaming on their own in that moment. And it all came together. All of them were basically pulling out various things from their kits to just try and do something to get her away from him now. And I want to run through this. So, Jinx goes, I am going to run up to him as fast as possible with my wolf. I'm going to have my wolf grab his ankle and use his trip attack ability to pull him over. At the same time, I'm going to tackle him by the I should mention, this guy is like 10, 12 foot tall, by the way. He's like a large or huge creature. I think he's a large creature or something like that. And she goes, I'm going to grab him by the fucking waist, and I'm going to push with every single ounce of my strength to get him over, which is 100, like, first, oh my god, amazing play, using her shit to do a trip and a push at the same time. Amazing. Lilith goes, I'm gonna hang from where I am, and I'm gonna grab the fucking max HP reducing poison I picked up, and I'm gonna fling that at him as a splash potion, and hopefully use my sneak attack with it as well, and just use it to try and trip him up, try and get him off guard enough that he, has to deal with that, because it's max HP, not HP. He can't regenerate that. Urist manages to wrestle himself out of the hand of him and goes, I'm going to throw 2 Eldritch Blasts directly into his face to disorient him. Nextar says, I am going to charge him fully enraged, switch to my 2-handed fucking guts sword, because he recently commissioned a magical guts blade, basically.
Of course.
And he goes, I'm gonna jump onto his chest using Jinx's back as a stepping stone to get up to his height, stab into him, and try and create a counterbalance to push him over with that trip. Lucinda obviously can't do anything, she's unconscious. And then the last and Douglas, I believe Douglas says, I'm gonna go in, and I think Graham, do you remember if he assisted with the push or went for a smite? I'm trying to remember.
I think he went for a smite, running off of the high that he was Brightblade now.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he specifically said, I'm going to channel all of my smites into one singular attack and basically go for, I think he was going for a strike on the leg, and said, I'm basically calling upon my neighbor's Brightblade to fucking smite this motherfucker, right? And then Graham adds the final piece of the puzzle. So, for months, out of game and in game, Graham and Urist had been taking advantage of the magical item crafting system which I had homebrewed into the game. And they together had been painstakingly designing a blueprint for and creating the first prototype of a unique magical item which we may have mentioned, called the Bastard's Knock. It was a battering ram enchanted with Thunderwave, so that when you struck it against something, it would cast it in a localized cone against that object. It was basically a super-powered battering ram that you could wield just as one person. Graham goes, I'm going to pull out the Bastard's Knock, and I am going to aim for his wrist that's holding Lucinda to try and get him to drop her. God, it just gives me shivers.
That's
So-
so cool. Was it like, it's that like awesome all-out attack moment, like everyone at once.
So they all go through with it. I basically say to all of them, okay, here's the logical order that these things would happen. And then I establish it's going to go you, finishing up with Graham. And I think I went, you need X amount of successes over failures, and you need to succeed. You need to, like, obviously logically succeed on all of it as well, right? Like, if you can't, if the rolls that tip him over don't tip him over, he won't be tipped over, right? Everyone fucking manages. Some of them kill it. Other of them manage to just barely scrape past. And then it reaches Graham. And Kalish is going over. He's going into the fucking river of sewage. This is going all according to plan. It comes down to Graham, and he misses. And
So painful to remember that to this day. It's the worst miss I have ever had in a D&D game.
It was especially fucking heartbreaking because that was like the literal hell scenario for Graham specifically. You are presented with a situation where you can save someone that, when you have experienced the fucking trauma of being unable to save your friends from the previous party you were in, and you just fucked up again. And so she's going over the edge in the hand of this fucking monster. And this was the part where, God, I fucking Nextars player, man. He just turns to me, unprompted. I'm saying I'm basically, I'm in the process of saying they're going over. She's still in his hand, and he just looks at me. And his original plan had been to stick the knife in him and jump off of him and leave the blade in his chest in order to make a quicker escape, right?
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, "I don't let go." And so they are in this river of filth, and he is literally wrestling with his father, who is thrashing and going berserk in the water while holding her in order to try and get it so that he can't get at her. He is holding on for dear life to the blade in order to try and make his way down the arm to try and pry her free. A couple of checks later, still raging, he manages to claw his way, and he's got his hands on his fucking fingers and is trying to pull away. He receives a cantrip whisper from Lilith, who has now run up to the edge of the fucking river and has pulled out her wand of magic missile and transmits to Nextar on the count when I say pull, and she goes, now casts magic missile, each one of the bolts directed at 3 of his 4 fingers that are grabbing Lucinda, breaking his fingers for long enough that he could pull her free, grab her, break the surface of the water, and land with her in tow.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
They give her a potion and they start fucking running. He does, because he has a swim speed from the water, does a jump, leaps into the fucking ceiling of the sewers with his arm buried into the fucking stone, looks down at them and just fucking screams at them, and they're all and they watch. At this point, I had basically made the decision because his main thing was his healing factor.
Yeah.
I, at this point, went, okay, max hit points heal after a rest. He can heal that too. So I describe, as Urus watches, the blackened, decayed hit point damage on his chest is now significantly smaller than it was before. Not fully healed, but on its way. And he looks at him, and then this was the part, right? He never took the blade back with him. So He has his one arm in the wall. He looks down to the group, grabs the blade from his chest, pulls it out, swings it round to a proper grip. The blade's wound heals up, and he looks at them. And Urist goes, "Everyone, keep going." And I think Graham is like, "We're not leaving you behind." He's like, "I'm not fucking killing myself, you idiot." And he picks up a piece of rubble, which is, I believe, a necessary channeling point for the spell Shatter. He flicks the piece of rubble directly at the wall that his arm is buried into, casts Shatter, and because his arms deal siege damage, so like triple damage, and then add on to that this this Shatter spell is doing siege damage to that as well. The whole sewer starts collapsing on top of him. And they run out, and fucking Metroidvania style stage blowing up behind them. They crawl out of the sewer, and the street sinks several feet as it all just completely buries him.
Oh, that's excellent.
And that was by far the best D&D I've ever had the pleasure
Holy
of running.
shit.
That's real good.
It was intense.
But God, yeah. How long do we have? There's still a few bits to cover.
I think we should probably wrap soon. I think it'd be
Oh.
wise.
God, if you're all right, then we're probably gonna have to have an episode 3 of covering all of the all of the next stuff. Fuck.
I mean, that seems like a pretty solid stopping point, quite frankly.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
I think we could cover up
Yeah.
to the end of the campaign in one more good session as well.
Yeah, easily, and then we can actually start getting into what the fuck the Devil's game is.
And like what would have happened in the future.
Exactly. God, I keep forgetting how much fucking material there was for this game. Thank you. I guess before we do any goodbye, any
Yeah.
questions or anything people? I'm open.
You running any games soon?
Sorry.
You running any games soon?
Thank you. Well,
Wait, dibs. I'm in there first. I was here first.
Well, I asked first, so.
well, honestly, funny you should mention that. Actually, Will. You know that one shot I ran for you guys?
Yes.
That Jay never managed to make it.
No.
You were too busy. I was thinking of looking into doing a new game at some point soon. So hey, maybe something will happen. And
Cool beans.
yeah, but
yeah.
yeah. Oh, I guess we'll wrap then. Thanks for having me. and thanks
Yeah,
for
thank you
listening to me
for
talk.
holy shit. Like you were on
Yeah.
a fucking roll.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it was entertaining to listen to because I get conscious about just talking constantly.
No, understandable. No, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed, like, with how deep and complex things can get without ever being overwhelming. Because that can definitely be the problem when there's too many pieces going on that things get lost in the cracks.
Yeah, like I was trying my best to cover some of the smaller points as quickly as possible, like because obviously stuff like the con artist that they tackled out
Yeah.
the window, like that was like vaguely important to establish that she actually got broken out by the Thieves Guild, the opposing Thieves Guild that Cordale was part of. But like, it's such a small point. It's difficult because I was trying to tie so much stuff into the story
Right.
that like you're gonna see. We're gonna get to a point with the next story time where I'm gonna reveal that there was a shit ton extra to Nirna, the gnome that I vaguely mentioned that never came up. But yeah, I guess thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me. I'm glad you enjoyed. Would you like to do your wrap up?
Yeah. Thanks again for coming out. Thanks everybody for watching. I absolutely promise to do this. There are two things that I would like to draw your attention to. First of all, Hart, our friend Hart is going through a bit of trouble and could use some assistance. If you have any like interest in giving them some money. They do need some help right now. I will drop a link to the thing in chat really quick. They could just use a bit of help. They're running an art sale. I've worked with all the artists on this list. They're all freaking wonderful. Please consider donating, as well as if you can, please pop over to Piff Zero and give him a follow. He's looking for. Genshin's doing this big event where if you get a certain number of follows during a certain period, he gets primo gems, and he'd appreciate the follow. He's a good dude. He does good streams. But yeah, that's about it for me. If it's cool with everyone, I think we'll just say goodbye at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Toodles.